Alexis here, coming to you with an awesome sale of 25% off when you use promo code OHURU25 at alexisfowler.com. I provide services like digital art, logo designs, packaging designs, web designs, social media flyers, and much more. If you're an entrepreneur with a business or a startup company, make sure you take advantage of this opportunity, getting 25% off when you use promo code OHURU25 at alexisfowler.com. Alexis here, coming to you with an awesome sale of 25% off when you use promo code OHURU25 at alexisfowler.com. I provide services like digital art, logo designs, packaging designs, web designs, social media flyers, and much more. If you're an entrepreneur with a business or a startup company, make sure you take advantage of this opportunity, getting 25% off when you use promo code OHURU25 at alexisfowler.com.
At the Okoli Law Group, we specialize in producing justice. If you or a loved one in the Atlanta metro area is facing serious criminal charges, then you need serious legal representation.
The Okoli Law Group is here for you. The Okoli Law Group is here for us.
The Okoli Law Group, serious legal representation.
Hello, I'm amirdynast. So I reached out to another friend of mine. I said, look, I need to go on vacation somewhere. Where should I go? He said, go to Africa. And not only am I going to go, I'm going to explore a new country. So I went to Tanzania, South Africa, Namibia, Mali, Senegal, Morocco, Liberia, Namibia, Kenya, the Voodoo Festival in Ouida, Gambia, Togo, Cote d'Ivoire. Sierra Leone, Ghana, Nigeria. It's been a beautiful experience, just learning more about our culture, our indigenous culture. So Uhuru means freedom in Swahili. I'm in search of my roots. In finding that, I would experience my Uhuru, which is freedom. I'm out.
Peace, family. We are live again. Dynasty Mirror, search for Uhuru. Thank you all. Thank you so much for joining. Hit that like button again, please. Hit that like button. Sorry about that. And I apologize about running late. I apologize about that. But again, please hit the like button. Please hit the like button. Also, make sure you share and make sure you subscribe. It really means a lot. I appreciate everyone's support. Everyone that all my day ones. There we go. I appreciate all my day ones. Everyone that's been there. Even my day twos, my day threes, my day 4 or 5s, and whatnot. I appreciate you as well. So please hit the like button. Please hit the like button. Also, make sure you share. Make sure you subscribe. Got a couple of announcements. So the trailer. All right, the trailer that you just saw is the trailer to my documentary. Guys, listen, please go to, if you're watching this, again, if you are watching this, all right, if you are watching this, if you have not bought my documentary, again, if you have not bought my documentary, please click on that link, that blue link on the top of the screen. Click on that link and please support and buy my documentary. I will greatly appreciate it. It really means a lot. Again, please go and buy. Again, please go and buy the documentary. Everyone in here who's watching this should have a copy in a stream. So what you do, you go click on that link, pay, and you can stream it as much as you want. It is yours. You set up a login, all that good stuff, and it's yours forever. Like on Sandlot. I think that was Sandlot, the movie. Forever. Forever. Hi, Jackie. Forever. Okay. So go. And we haven't forgotten about the streaming platform. Listen, guys, we talked about this briefly like last year. Again, we talked about this briefly last year. The streaming platform is coming, okay? It's going to come. All right. It's going to come. All right. So, yeah. Hit the like button. Also, make sure you share and make sure you subscribe. I'm sorry. Share the documentary, okay? Share the documentary. Buy the documentary. You're watching this, you need to do that. All right. And we are rolling to Sierra Leone, November 21st to December 5th, November 21st through December 5th. We are rolling to Sierra Leone. Citizenship is available to those who qualify. Citizenship is available to those who qualify. We will love to have you guys. Even if you're not eligible for citizenship, come and join us in Sierra Leone. Come and have a good time. Come and have an awesome, awesome time in Sierra Leone with us, guys. It's going to be lit. You're going to eat some great seafood. Enjoy the beautiful beaches of Sierra Leone. What else? Oh, we go to Zanzibar. We leave for Zanzibar on Sunday. So I'm taking a group to Zanzibar on Sunday. Then from Zanzibar, headed over to Sierra Leone, straight from Zanzibar. So we are going to have a great time. Come and join us. We greatly appreciate it. Go to downfall.africa to learn more. Go to downfall.africa to learn more. Also, we're going to Benin in January for the Voodoo Festival. Senegal in May for the Jazz Festival. In Nigeria in August for the Oshun Festival. Rokoya, hope to join one of your East African tours one of these days. Why not West Africa? Why not West Africa? See, I'm really a West Africa guy. Okay, I prefer West Africa. But we're going to Zanzibar. And to be honest with you, because of the demand for Zanzibar and the people who are interested, probably going to do it again next year, but just stay tuned. Stay tuned for that. Probably going to do Zanzibar again next year around the same time in November. So stay tuned for that. In fact, you know what? Hold on. We'll go ahead and make an announcement right now. Let's see here. Let me pull this up real quick. Let me pull the calendar up real quick. Let's see here. 2024. All right, you guys. So we'll go ahead and do Zanzibar November 9th. I'm sorry, November 10th through the 19th. Yeah, November 10th through the 19th. Again, this is not confirmed or written in ink yet, but more than likely, I'm like 70% sure. Or we'll do another island like Seychelles or somewhere. But me personally, I like to go to the places first before I bring guests. So I've never been to Seychelles. Or maybe South Africa. I'm not excited about South Africa though. Yeah, I'm not that excited about South Africa. What's that noise? Guys, give me a second. What's that? What's going on? Yeah, but I'm not that excited about South Africa. Maybe Seychelles. We'll find another. Maybe Cape Verde. What you guys think about Cape Verde? All right, so here we go. For next year, either Cape Verde. Hold on. So, guys, here we go. 1 is for Zanzibar, 2 is for Seychelles, 3 is for Cape Verde. Put your response in the chat room right now, everyone. Let me know. What would you prefer? Zanzibar is 1, Seychelles is 2, Cape Verde is 3. Which one? All right, so it's even right now. It's even. All right. Okay, it looks like there's a tie between Seychelles and Zanzibar. Okay. All right, looks like Zanzibar and Cape Verde are tied now. So Zanzibar, Cape Verde, and Seychelles are all tied now. Guys, we're going to do Zanzibar. We'll do Zanzibar again. Okay, we'll do Zanzibar. So November 10th. I'm sorry. Yeah, November 10th through the 19th. November 10th through the 19th, guys. Again, nothing is solidified yet, but November 10th through the 19th, that's what it's looking like. Yeah, November 10th through the 19th. November 10th through the 19th. There we go. Zanzibar, November 10th to the 19th, more than likely. So the information, the official announcement will probably be soon. So yeah, let's jump into today's topic. I found this interview and it was between. I think the guy's name is Piers Morgan, who's a rated TV personality or not radio host, TV host, news anchor. I don't know what the term would be in the UK. Here's Frenchie, everybody. Say hello to Frenchie. Say hello to Frenchie, everyone. All right, so Piers Morgan, an Egyptian comedian, and a black guy from the LGBTQ IAZDEGF elemental P community. So let's listen to this interview first. I'll give my commentary because there were some points where I agree with the Egyptian guy on some of the statements he made. But he did admit towards the end of the interview that when it came to the building of the pyramids, that Black Africans played a role. He was just saying you descendants of West Africans didn't. But let's jump into this real quick. Give me a second. Pull this up. Oh, oops. Almost messed up.
Welcome back to Baseball Nonsense. It's a big budget Netflix series on Cleopatra has been hit with claims of cultural vandalism over the casting of black actress Adele James in the lead role. Cleopatra's precise heritage is a point of scholarly debate. There's no evidence that she was black, and the casting has caused major controversy in Egypt, spurring a lawsuit and claims that program makers are erasing Egyptian identity. It's not the first casting controversy we've seen, of course, although the backlash is normally the other way around. Bryan Cranston was lambasted for playing a disabled character in The Upside, as was Jake Gyllenhaal, who starred in The Prince of Persia despite not being Persian or a prince. And of course, Eddie Redmayne, who issued a groveling apology for playing a trans woman in The Danish Girl. So is casting Cleopatra as a black woman culturally insensitive? Should we care? Isn't the job of an actor, after all, to act? Well, joining me now is legendary Egyptian comedian Bassem Youssef and author of The Case for Cancel Culture, Ernest Owens. Well, welcome to both of you. Okay, let me start with you, Ernest Owens. Off you go.
Yeah, I think that this is ridiculous. I think that she is in full range to play Cleopatra. I think people should remember that there was controversy when the late, great Elizabeth Taylor played Cleopatra, and people thought that it was inaccurate for a white woman like her to play the character. History has said that there is some racial ambiguity around Cleopatra's identity. She's definitely not white. And I think to even assume that Egyptians do not carry some level of African ancestry that can have a darker skin complexion is also historically inaccurate. So I think she's more of the ideal of what Cleopatra would look like more than Elizabeth Taylor would be. And you didn't see as much backlash for Elizabeth Taylor playing Cleopatra compared to that.
That's a fair point. So let me go to you, Bassem. I mean, that is a fair point. Liz Taylor was the biggest movie star in the world at the time she played Cleopatra. She was not Egyptian. What's the difference?
Well, first of all, this was Hollywood before it was informed. This is where 1961, when Cleopatra by Elizabeth Taylor, we're not crazy about Elizabeth Taylor playing Cleopatra either. That was also inaccurate. I don't know where do you get the idea that we're happy that she played the role. As a matter of fact, 1961 Cleopatra movie was banned in Egypt and many Arab countries because of Elizabeth Taylor's stance towards the state of Israel, because they were supporting.
Elizabeth Taylor wasn't Nubian.
So I don't know where does he get this information.
I'm sorry, Cleopatra. Cleopatra wasn't Nubian. I'm sorry, Cleopatra wasn't Nubian.
1956, they cast John Wayne as Genghis Khan. So this is a time where Hollywood didn't know any better. Now, the problem for me, it's not about color. It's not about white and black. This is a very reductive way to talk about things. This is the way that Americans talk about it. I'm very sorry. Like, I come from Egypt. Egypt has a very diverse color palette. People can look like me or they can look deeper skin tone, like Anwar Sadat, who comes from a Nubian origin. It's not about black and white. It's about the continuous culture appropriation and falsification of history that has been done by what the so-called Afrocentrist movement. The Afrocentric movement started the last century as a way, in a good intention, to teach African American about their rich history of West Africa, the great empire of Benin, of Ghana, of Songhali.
This is where I agree with them on. It's black folks will completely skip over West Africa and claim to be from Kemet, Hebrew Israelites, then come back, skip, then head back after they go to the east. After they go to the east and skip over Sub-Saharan Africa, skip over West Africa. I'm sorry. First, they'll skip over West Africa, skip over Sub-Saharan Africa, just to say that they're from Kemet and that they're Hebrew Israelites. Then come back west, completely skip over Sub-Saharan Africa, completely skip over West Africa, and say that they're Olmecs, Native Americans from North Dakota and South Dakota, and Aboriginal to America. So I agree with him. Let's continue. On this point, I agree with him.
The great empire of Mali. But the thing is, that's why you find people like Kevin Hart, who subscribes to these theories, who claim that his ancestors built the pyramids. I'm sorry, your ancestors had their own wonderful civilization in West Africa. They are culture appropriating my culture.
He makes a point. Kevin Hart's y'all ain't from Kemet. You all aren't from Kemet. I'm not saying there weren't black hands that played a role in the building of the pyramids, but you all, your nearest ancestors came from West Africa, more than likely. Or Central when it comes to Congo, Angola, as far as to Mozambique and Madagascar. Not Kemet. So he makes a great point. Your ancestors more than likely had more of a role in the building of the Mali Empire, the Great Walls of Benin, than they did pyramids. He's right.
Calling the people of Egypt of today, despite their skin tone, that they call us as invaders, they call us as intruders, and they are being erased from our own history. This is something that Hollywood has done over the years.
I understand, but let me throw this back at you. There's this point that we've had so many cases now where people talk about appropriation with actors, be it their sexuality, be it their gender on occasion, be it whatever it may be. And ultimately, I always come back to one point, which is, shouldn't actors do what their job description is? Act. I mean, shouldn't any actor be able to play any part, actually? And once you start making exceptions for that rule, where do you stop?
Is that question for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, this is not a work of fiction. This is a documentary. This is a documentary. There's a huge difference. This is not The Little Mermaid, which is like a fictional character where anybody can play anything. Cleopatra came from a Macedonian Greek origin, and the thing is, it's not about like the skin color. We don't care about if they're black or white. It's about how Hollywood is so culturally sensitive, and they're so sensitive about all kinds of minorities. But when it comes to my people, we seem to be erased. A couple of years ago, they announced that Gal Gadot, an ex-Israeli soldier who condones her government actions, atrocities against Palestinian children, she was going to play Cleopatra. For me, this is even a bigger insult. And Gal Gadot is not black. It's not about black and white. It's about this idea of Hollywood always stealing the culture of my own people. I don't care what Charleston Heston tells you in the Ten Commandments or Steven Spielberg tells you in The Prince of Egypt, but I am sorry, Jewish slaves did not build the Great Pyramid. This has been debunked many times by true historians.
Let me
So the
bring.
thing is, like,
wanna-
we are the
I agree with that. There is no record or no proof that Jews came to Egypt and were slaves. There's absolutely no proof of the Jewish presence in Egypt as slaves at all. He's correct.
only
hang on.
people who are not
Hang on,
allowed
don't
to
talk
tell
over
our
each
own.
other.
We are the only people who are not allowed to talk about our own history.
All right, let
and
me bring.
Hollywood
All
is
right,
doing it
let
for
me.
us.
Okay,
I disagree.
hang on, Ernest. Let me ask you a question, Ernest. Which is, how would
Sure.
you feel if a white actor was chosen to play Nelson Mandela?
I think that there is historical inaccuracies there. I think that, I think what he's confusing is race and nationality. And I also think that that is why you don't see as many Black actors upset as Cynthia Erivo, who is British, who played, Harriet, because we understand the nuances of racial identity compared to nationality versus the identity of the African diaspora. So no one's upset about the fact that David Oyelowo played MLK. There may be some people, but others didn't, because we understood the nuance of racial identity. So when we're talking about race and nationality, those are two different things. But I think the issue that I want to push back on what he said earlier is that there are other actors in this film that are playing Egyptians that do not look like Cleopatra or come from there. And I just feel like the energy being focused on Cleopatra is why some people are pushing back, because this actress could easily look, by identity, looks closer to what Cleopatra could look like. But the rest of that cast is fairly white, and you're not saying anything about those individuals. You're only focused on Cleopatra, who's being played by this Black actress. But when you look at the other cast, I don't think they're all Egyptian. I don't think they all represent the cast.
All right, let me.
So I think
Let me
there's
bring
a
in.
double standard there.
Okay, let me bring back Bassem. I mean, if this was in a theatre production, I could imagine this happening without people creating much of a fuss. Is it because it's a Hollywood movie and Hollywood's put itself in the vanguard of cultural appropriation?
It's a documentary. Hollywood has been erasing my people from we are not allowed to tell our own history. And I'm sorry, I have to disagree with the gentleman. It's not about it's not just Cleopatra. Everybody in that movie, her court, everybody who's supposed to be Egyptian, they look like they came from West Africa, from the south of the Sahara. We as Egyptians are being called intruders and invaders in our own culture. This has been going on systematically. I don't want to wake up one day and find the Museum of the African American Culture and History claiming the stolen Egyptian artifacts in the British Museum to be theirs. And now I'm hearing that Zendaya, the very popular actor, who I would love her to play it, but Zendaya ethnically is half Nigerian, half German, and now she's going to play. Where are the Egyptian actors? Where are the Arab actors who suppose it? And the thing is, even like historically wise, you see in the trailer, it's like, I don't care what they told you, but Cleopatra was Black. Who's that woman? Why is African American people are telling my own history? She is there's all of these pseudoscience and pseudo history has been going on, and it has implications. No, I am sorry. African people from West Africa did not build the pyramids.
Okay.
Cleopatra did not like that. And also Jewish people do not build the pyramids.
Okay.
It is time for Hollywood to listen to the people who own that history. So
Well,
we
you've
can
made that.
And
you've
just
made that.
one more
Bassem,
thing. I
I'm
just
going to
want
leave
to
it
say
there.
one more thing. Egypt had 30 dynasty over 2,700 years. We had kings and queens from the kingdom of Kush, from Nubia, from Libya. This area had bled into each other and expanded and shrunk into each other. I understand exactly what I mean when I say nationality or heritage or ethnicity.
You both made made.
All right, I'm going to put the link in the chat room if you guys want to call in and add to the conversation. You're more than welcome to call in and add to the conversation. Link is in the chat room. Guys, again, hit the like button. Again, please hit the like button. Also, make sure you share and make sure you subscribe if you are new. You guys should know what to do already, though. You guys should already know what to do. y'all know y'all got to show Dynasty Mir some love, okay? You know you guys got to show Dynasty Mir some love, all right? So make sure you hit the like button, share, subscribe, and also, if you have not bought the documentary In Search of Uhuru, I need everyone who is watching this. All right, there's 181 of you watching this. There's 181 of you watching this. Links in the chat room. If you guys want to call in, click on the link and call in. But there is 180 of you all in the chat room. I need everybody who's watching this. If you have not bought the documentary In Search of Uhuru, okay. Go to searchforuhuru.com. Go to searchforuhuru.com. Click that blue link up there and buy the documentary. Again, and buy the documentary. If you're not buy the documentary, go to searchforuhuru.com. Click that blue link up there. We'll put the link in the chat room on the screen. There you go. That's where you go to buy the documentary, okay? And when you click that link, it's going to bring you here. And you can stream it from the stream it on any device. You can stream it as long as you don't have Obama Wi-Fi on your Obama phone. I don't think this will stream on your Obama phones, but yeah. Truth Teacher 2007, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, man?
There's a lot of background noise.
Yeah, I'm outside. Give me a few seconds. I'll be indoors. Can you hear me, or is it like totally distorted?
Yeah, it's distorted. It's a little distorted.
Okay, give me a few seconds.
Chitlins and Grits, go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Dynast? Interesting
good,
show. You gotta, from your other show, you gotta visit New Orleans, bro, and try the food there, bro. I mean, the food culture in Atlanta is trash.
I know it is.
It is. But getting back in this topic, the Egyptian actor made his point. The thing is, I was wondering, okay, if they hired, because there's Egyptians that look like the actress, lots of them. Being in Egypt myself, I've seen lots of, especially people who live in southern Egypt, who are, brownish skin or whatnot. I mean, like most African countries, like if you go to Nigeria, you have houses who live in Nigeria in the north, you have houses that live in Nigeria. Same thing in Egypt, since it borders countries like the northern region of Sudan. You have Egyptians who look like, kind of like the Arab, and then you have many Egyptians who look like Northern Sudanese. And a lot of Northern Sudanese who look like, and southern Egyptians look like that actress. So I'm wondering if we put one of those people in there instead of, a person of West African ancestry, I'm wondering what his impression would be.
Right, but I think his issue is Cleopatra was from Macedonia, so she wasn't of African descent. I think that was his point.
Right, and I get it, and I agree with that. I agree with that, but then again, there's many different movies, like The King of Egypt and stuff like that, or something like that. It was Egyptian-based film, but most of the actors were British. And that was fairly recent, like I guess about 8 years ago. He was a comedian then. Why haven't he complained about that?
I'm not sure. Well, they've always had raised issue with, I guess the romanticism by Black Americans of this Black or Africanized Egypt. So I know there's always been a consistent criticism coming from Egyptians in regards to this Africanized, romanticized Egypt or whatnot.
Yeah. I see his point, but as far as I mean, I think most Black people that I know don't claim Egypt. I guess what it came down to, as far as what people made it look like, that Egypt was not part of the African continent, and that therefore, it was somehow this Sahara that pretty much divided, so-called, Egypt, or basically most of the countries in North Africa, from sub-Saharan Africa, which in reality, that wasn't the case. Even if you look deep in a history, I'll give you a perfect example: the Makurian Empire, which people don't realize was a Christian empire that existed along the Nile Valley, what is now Sudan and Upper Egypt. And they controlled from what is now Dogular Sudan all the way to Luxor. And it's pretty much, what I'm saying is the borders have always been porous and always depend on the time and the time period of the region. Like you could find Egyptian temples in North Sudan, like places like Soeb, Jebel Bakal, among Sai Island, which was Egyptian city in Sudan. So the two areas has always been intertwined for millennia.
No, you're right. Star Study, go ahead. Star Study 9.
Okay. Thanks for having me on.
Well, let me read these super chats first. Sorry. Donating for all the brokies and dusties in the chat who can't donate. Thanks for the show. Appreciate you, KJ. America's first rifle man. I'm gonna bring you on here shortly. They are not African Arabs. One. All right, go ahead. Star Study 9.
So we need to understand there's something called whitewashing, which is a really big disease. So civilization started in Africa. It didn't start any other place. It started in Africa and then moved out. The ancient Egyptians, from the description of the Greeks who were there with them, said that they were as black as the Ethiopians. Egypt is a colony of the Ethiopians, right? Then they also said that those Egyptians founded Macedonia. There was this king, whether it was Amenhotep III. He came into Macedonia. He killed the king of Macedonia, and then he founded kingdoms there. They said that everything the Greeks before the whites came into Greece, right? So even he said, what's the name? Herodotus said that Chaldea, that's in Babylon. He thought they were Egyptians, and then he asked them, and then they said yes, they're related to the Egyptians. Even in your Bible, when you read your Bible, right? It says
but the Bible, we can't use the Bible for historic.
No. Like the Bible mentions Cush, right? It says that Cush had a son, Nimrod, and Nimrod founded Babylon, Sumeria. He founded like kingdoms in the Middle East. So what they are doing is they are deceiving us, because the people who presently live there are white, but the ancients weren't white. That's what we have to understand. The Phoenicians, the Canaanites, those people weren't white. Then when Egyptian civilization fell, especially the Nubian civilization, most of them migrated west. For example, Hausa people, Modis Wolof, the kingdom of Mali, most of them are related to the Nubians of ancient time. So it's not that we are stealing their culture. There's enough evidence to prove that Egypt is African. They never described them as any other thing other than black. So it's not like we're trying to steal anything. It's our history.
No, I don't think he was. Well, he actually no. This is the what the Egyptian guy was saying was, at the end he did admit that there was a black presence in Egypt, because
there was no white presence. That's what I'm saying. There was no white presence until the Greeks. They are lying. This is what we call revisionist history. There was no description of whites in Egypt until the time of the Greeks, and even the Greeks are brown skinned. The Greeks of then are not the Greeks of today that are as white as they are now. They were brown skinned. Some Greeks actually were still black. For example, Socrates, he was described as a black person. So all this, we're trying to steal their culture. That is all bullshit. Even then, Strabo said that Osiris left Egypt and went into India. and founded the civilization in India. He planted 2 plants to make a memory of him of what it was like in Egypt. So there's enough facts and there's enough evidence to show that even when you check the cultural differences, they said that Cadmeus, he went into Greece, he went into Illyria, and then he taught them how to make iron, he taught them how to make metal. Cadmeus is related to Egyptians. He's a Phoenician. So they can't deceive us again. Like most of us now study. Most of us now know this history. They can't be like, oh, Africans didn't all that history of Western Europe, everything there. Even the Greeks said the Olympic Games, medicine, science was taught to them by blacks. So they can't be like, oh, these people we were ancient Egyptians, because we know that's not true. Then when you look at the culture is still very much present in Africa. If you go to Benin, right, and you look at some of the ancient artifacts, Obatala is best. That's the Yoruba god. Obatala is best. Some of those traditions, they still have it because these traditions came from the Sudanese migrants who came and mixed with us in West Africa. There is this one arm boxing that they do. So West Africa is a continuation of Nubian civilization because they migrated here. We have stories of them like coming into northern Nigeria and like bringing in metal works and all that stuff. So all this that the Egyptians are not this, that's not true.
Let me pass the. Go ahead, Philip.
Greetings, Dynast. Greetings, panel. I'm not going to stay
Yeah,
long.
greetings.
One of the things that I'm going to push here, and I'm glad that you have your movie up, Dynast, is to continuously, try to grow. I bought your film, and to kind of emphasize this merger that would be nice to see of Black Hollywood production with Nigerian Nollywood production, and spread that all throughout West Africa, and so that the diaspora in particular can see a more direct history of themselves than what I would consider to be a more diffuse history that they have with Eastern Africa, depending on what you're talking about. I don't necessarily disagree with anything that Star-Studded said. On the Cleopatra specifically issue, as I'm understanding it, she was a mixed person, but primarily Greek and what was considered to be Macedonian. She's the daughter of Ptolemy, and I guess Ptolemy was one of the generals under Alexander the Great. But to Star-Studded's point, that these groups have shifted in terms of what they are now as opposed to what they were then. But no matter how you shake it, this was not a person that necessarily was something you would expect to see from West Africa. And so to the extent that the diversity of Egypt is shown, which, I've done limited reading and study about it, but one thing I do know is that it was a very complex and diverse society, and as the speaker said, that there were in fact Black pharaohs and so on. It becomes complex as to describing them in modern terms with the ancient terms, because Blackness was a creation that comes about in the 17th century. It was to secure rights for Mzungus, not necessarily to define us because we're a complicated people. So I just wanted to throw that out there and say, it gets complicated, and I think part of the issue is that we want to see ourselves and our own history. And so I had put in the back chat There's a wonderful little animated film that they did in Nigeria that kind of tells more of a more West African tale, but you can see a greater reflection of ourselves, and I think that perhaps would be better. But you know, it's up for debate, so I'll throw it to the panel.
I don't know. Someone in the chat room says, as a Yoruba, I'm proud to know that most of our culture comes from ancient Egypt. That's not true. You guys we're from Ile Ife.
Darnus, can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead, Bree. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I totally agree with everything Philip said. I think at the time, from my limited knowledge, at the time that Cleopatra was born, Egyptian society was very diverse. They had been conquered many times, and there was a time where I believe the Sudanese, I think it was the Kush Empire, was in control of Egypt, but that was a totally different time period. So more than likely, Cleopatra was more so mixed and probably even on the lighter side. How controversial that might be, that's up for debate, but her roots were maybe even closer to Greece or Macedonia, as he said. I really wish we could all focus and learn more about West African empires, because I don't know anything. As a person who grew up in the United States, I really don't know anything about West African kingdoms and dynasties. In high school, they focus on Egypt, and particularly the time of Egypt where Greece and Rome took over and invaded. So it would be lovely to see movies focusing on that. Or if they're gonna focus on Egypt, focus on like maybe Nefertari, Nefertiti, those more ancient queens. That's just all I wanted to say.
Hey, Dinus.
Yeah, go ahead, King.
Yeah, I have a couple things to say, but you said that we're from Ile Ife concerning the Nigerians.
I
I'm
said
a
Yorubas.
yeah, the Yorubas. I'm a lover of African traditional art, just like you, Dinus. I collect many different, artifacts from all different African societies, and I study them. And if you look at the art that the ancient Nigerians created, specifically the Benin Kingdom, you would see that they would put the snake on the top of they would put the snake on top of their forehead, right? And we also see the same symbolism in ancient Egypt where the pharaoh will put the snake on top of his forehead, right? Anybody that knows Benin artifacts, they know what I'm talking about. Also, if you go to Ghana, right, they have a symbol called I'm probably butchering the name, but it's called the Aquaba figure, and it literally resembles the Kemetic Ankh, right? The symbol of life, right? So all throughout Africa, it shows in our The Dogon artifacts. too. Yeah, the Dogon, Yeah. all throughout Africa, it shows in our artifacts, our art, our culture, our language, that we are connected to the ancient Egyptians, right? And going back to the topic, right? These Arabs in Egypt today, they know they're not the heirs of the ancient, that ancient society, because they're over there digging up the bodies of ancient people. They're literally showing you that they have no respect for these people. They're over there. If you look at the pictures, of the pyramids online, there's trash everywhere. In the tombs. So they don't really hold it to something that's really holy. For them, right? Ask yourself this question, Dinus: how come they don't go to Mecca and dig up the body of the Prophet Muhammad and put his body in museums? Why don't they do that?
Where is he buried?
He's buried in I believe it's Medina. It's somewhere over there, but he's buried in a mosque over there. They have his tomb. But how come they don't dig him up, put him in museums and tour him around the world for everyone to see? That's total desecration, right? And also, right, I'm from Senegal, right, Dinus? And everybody knows about Sheikh Anta Diop. He was a prominent, Senegalese historian, scientist, Facts. etc.
And before Sheikh Anta Diop, there was another historian in the 1800s by the name of Yoro Buli Jau, right? This guy, he was a Fulani man, and Sheikh Anta Diop gets a lot of his knowledge from Yoro Buli Jau. Yoro Buli Jau was he was a griot, right? A griot is those West Africans that play we call it the halam, but it's called the kora, right? And they basically tell the stories of the people. So Yoro Buli Joe, he says that we migrated to Senegal under two kings, right? He says one of these kings was named Pat Lamin and the other one was named Susture, right? And if you look at these names like Pat Lamin, right? It sounds very similar to the Egyptian dynasty known as Ptolemy, Ptolemy, So you have to understand that a lot of these names in Egypt, such as Tutankhamen, Akhenaten, these are Greek translations. We have our own translations in Africa, right? An example of this is Sankara, right? Sankara, the living god Ra, right? Another example of this is the Egyptian god Amenta, right? In Africa we have the name Amina, right? The Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten, right? In Ghana they have a name Akhenten, right? Same with the name Tutankhamen. In Africa, we have very similar names. We have very similar names, that are related to these names. I can give you guys a myriad of examples, right? But that's all I got to say right now.
All right, go ahead, Alan.
Yeah. Y'all can hear me?
Yeah, we hear loud and clear. Go ahead.
All right, cool. I just want to say this. Cleopatra was not black. Not in the slightest. Were there black dynasties in Egypt? Absolutely. Coming from Kush. A lot of there are more pyramids in the Sudan than there are in Egypt. So a lot of the spiritual life of Egypt came up from Kush. So we can acknowledge that there were Kush dynasties. But it's historically inaccurate to get out here and say that Cleopatra was black or anything close to black. She's part of a dynasty when the Greeks took over in Egypt. You may not necessarily have depictions of her, but you have depictions in stone of her father Ptolemy and her mother. And a quick Google search will show you that these people's faces, and they show their long European features. They were white. And we sound stupid when we're going out here trying to make somebody something that they were not, when the truth will suffice. The truth of the matter is that African dynasties, there were black dynasties in Egypt, and we ruled that thing for a time. Maybe you can make arguments about Nefertiti, but you cannot make an argument about Cleopatra. Cleopatra was a white woman of Greek or Macedonian ancestry. That is a fact of history. And when we get out here and we say things other than that, we really sound silly to other people who see us as people who just are grasping at straws.
Okay,
absolutely.
Well, can I add to that?
No, let me pass it to Alquan. I'll pass it back to you, Star. Go ahead, Alquan.
Oh, thank you. How are you doing? Yeah, as far as this debate, this is a long debate. It's a weird thing in 2023 where you have Negroes who are aligning with the Aryan nation and saying that black people only come from sub-Saharan Africa and had nothing to do with North Africa, nothing to do with history.
I didn't say that. Who said that?
Well, that's the general premise that I'm hearing these days with a lot of Negroes on YouTube. Not just people today, but people all around. They're saying black people are confined to sub-Saharan Africa, which means that there could be no out of Africa theory or no out of Africa reality if black people in Africa were so afraid to leave the forest. They couldn't even travel within the Sahara in their own continent. but that's what we're supposed to believe, that the white man comes from the ice areas, but somehow he could survive in an African desert better than the indigenous Africans can. You got to make that make sense. And also ancient Egypt, they also had, a lot of people do romanticize it. Like you heard people earlier trying to make a West African connection. Now there's some scholars, white scholars, that say that there was some type of West African connection, but obviously it wasn't overt, or else you would see a striking, no doubt about it, similarity in culture and arts, which you don't see. But you had ancient Egypt, they had enemies within Africa, like the Libyans and even the Nubians. So everybody back in the ancient times, they weren't really rallying around Egypt as if it was Mecca and Medina, like some people want you to believe. There were some people that just didn't like Egypt for whatever reason. I don't know what the reasons were. Maybe just because they were different, maybe because they were better, maybe they didn't like the religion. Who knows? But, and also people, someone made a reference to Senegalese languages with Tutankhamun, but you got to understand, all those names concatenated together are separate names with different meanings. Like that's the name, Amen. Those are different things. That's not all one straight name. So, and there are Africans like in Sudan, South Sudan, who still name their people Tut. So that association is very clear. So I think I said enough by now, so I'll let my man go on.
I'd like to make a contribution.
Go ahead, True Teacher.
To the conversation.
Go ahead.
All right. So first of all, we got to put this, in light of this interview that was given, we've got to put this whole thing in a context as to why Egyptians are upset. And simplistically, to put it in the simplest terms, the problem is that you've had a lot of people attacking the modern population of Egypt and Egyptians anywhere they see them online, telling them that they're Arab invaders, they're white, they're not African, they, ancient Egypt doesn't belong to them. Now, one of the brothers previously said that people in Egypt today are white. If you've ever been to Egypt in person, you can call them a lot of things, but white would not be one of them. Okay, the people who live in Egypt today are descended from the ancient population. Like another brother said earlier, those borders have always been very porous. Okay, they've never been isolated from the stubborn borders. As a matter of fact, people that we call Nubian now, and understand that they didn't call themselves that, but people who we would call that today, they were all over Egypt from the very beginning. Likewise, because Egypt is connected to Asia by land, there's always been in the north migrations coming out of the Levant.
Okay. So,
and if you look at the history,
I'd like to submit after him, please.
Excuse me, I let everybody speak, and
yeah,
I like
go
to
ahead,
show the same respect, if that's okay. So the people who live in Egypt today, they're not Arab invaders, and this is part of the reason why they're so sensitive, because they've been attacked basically because of what they look like. But the question that I would like to say to everyone is, like, we have people in the African American community and the African diaspora who are not 100% genetically African. We have people who are only like 20% African. And yet we understand that those people are still people of African descent. So why is it so hard to understand that the people living in the continent who've never left, even if they are mixed, or to what degree they're mixed, being mixed doesn't erase your ancestral lineage. It only adds to it. Now, when it comes to Cleopatra herself, The issue that I have is why is everybody breaking their neck trying to claim this woman when she's the descendant of a colonizing family that had imposed an apartheid system on the native African population, the native Egyptian population. Out of the whole 375 years that that family was ruling in Egypt, she was the first and only one who learned how to speak the Egyptian language. You know, I mean, if people really just took the time to look at the history, a lot of these questions would be answered. Cleopatra was not ethnically Egyptian. She was a Macedonian Greek. She was a colonizer. Her family oppressed the Egyptian people, and the native Egyptian people were constantly rebelling against their rule all the time. So why are we trying to stretch, make this long stretch to claim this woman? All right.
Okay. All right.
Second thing,
Oh,
West Africa, our direct ancestors come from West Africa. Okay.
Preach. Go ahead.
They come from West Africa. Now, another thing, just an aside, I'm an Aborisha. Okay, I follow the Lukumi tradition.
very easily. Okay.
Okay.
How many bullet points?
Like I said, I gave you your chance to speak. I'd like to be shown the same respect in return.
I haven't spoken yet.
Okay. Well, when it's your time to speak, I will show you respect, and I'd like you to show me the same respect. Thank you. Bes is not Obatala. Okay, if you look at the attributes of Bes and Obatala, they're nothing in common. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Our ancestors are from West Africa. Why are people trying to make connections with Kemet when Ile Ife is there? If you look at our stories of creation, we do not say that we came from Egypt or we migrated from anywhere. In our creation story,
yo, bro, I'm West African from Senegal. Did you hear what I had to say?
I heard what you had to say. I think he's my friend,
the Yoruba.
I let you speak, and once again, I would like to be shown the same respect.
Make an end to your point, though.
I would like to be shown the same respect because everybody else is going. Listen.
Go ahead.
Everybody has been able to speak their points freely without interruption. And just because I'm saying something that goes against your narrative doesn't mean that I don't deserve to be shown the same respect.
You don't have unlimited time, though, bro.
Can you dig it?
Hey, okay, bro. You got. Whoa. Nah, this is the host now. This is the host. You got 35 seconds. Go ahead.
Like I said, our traditions are alive. Whatever was there in Egypt, in Kemet, that tradition died. Our traditions today are alive. Why aren't we tapping into that? That is tangible. That is alive. It exists. Why aren't we paying more attention to that? Why are we always putting Kemet on a pedestal above our own ancestors?
Okay, can I go now?
Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
All right. So, first of all, there is the major point for me in this whole, first part where the Egyptian guy's talking. It's not about Cleopatra because there were 7 Cleopatras, and I guess she was the first. It's more about he's asserting that the Afrocentric movement is trying to appropriate their identity, their culture. That's the bigger point, and this is what they're squirming and fighting about over there in Kemet, which is why the conference a year and a half ago they've been doing these conferences for the last 40 years where Afrocentric scholars take a group of Black folks to Kemet and they go through the pyramids and they talk about it from a more accurate perspective and da-da-da-da. So this time they had a group in Egypt that incited a whole big, media thing about this group of Afrocentrics coming into to start a civil war like in what happened in Sudan, or something like that, right? So it was so bad, and they were making death threats to the organizers of this thing. This is the first time in 40 years something like this has happened. They had to cancel the whole trip. They lost all this money, and it was a big mess, right? Because it was death threats and all these things. These are the Egyptians that are there. What Egyptians are doing these? These are the Egyptians that look like him that are doing this. These aren't the darker, browner Egyptians. So I would agree that it is a mixed, thing, but this is as a result of the invasion and the mixing of people. You had all these invasions, and in each invasion, the time period they lasted, that those group of people mixed with the people that were there, and then it was a kind of international place. So you had some of the mixing there, but the real issue is that it is an African culture, right? And that they have nothing to do with that African culture, because if they did, they would never have desecrated those sacred places. It is alien to them. It is not their culture, right? Because if I want to go dig up Muhammad or whoever they have over there, and they got this old important person in Islam, and I wanted to dig him up to study, or somebody wanted to dig him up to study, they would kill you. So this is not their culture. We all know this. We also know that there's been an attack on African people and African culture since a long time. I'll say that, but it got stepped up when slavery took place. Finally, I met a brother from Bogotanga, and this, you guys have heard this before amongst Yorubas and other people, Edos and all the. So continental Africans in Africa also say that they migrated from Kemet. And then there's evidence for that. There's cultural evidence. There's archaeological evidence. In fact, there's a book that Sheikh Anta Diop's student wrote about the migrations from Kemet to West Africa. Now, I'll try to land on this point. This brother from Bogotanga, northern Ghana, was talking about in space before how they migrated 700-800 years ago from Kush, and he talks about in his community in Bogotanga. These are Gurunts people. He talks about the things that they have, the physical things that they have that are identical. They have pyramids and stuff like that they have in northern Ghana. That is because they came from that culture. And there's other things, that names and things that he says that are very similar to that culture and to the Dogon culture. They talk about Nama. Ama is the Dogon god, Ama. They call it Nama. And there's some other practices, burial practices that they have that's identical to what they do in Kemet. And they're not the only ones that say that. Other groups say that. I didn't believe it at first when I heard other Africans. And I thought, oh, they're just trying to, get some energy from this whole. I hear the Mecca thing. We came from Mecca. The Yoruba say we came from Mecca.
That's because of Islam. That's because of Islam, though.
Right. That's what I thought it was, right? And other Yoruba saying, no, we didn't come from Egypt. We came from Ile-Ife. So there's that whole thing. But as I begin to put this picture together, and when we put those West African cultures in the picture, Sheikh Anta Diop did this whole thing with linguistics and the linguistics of Wolof and ancient Egypt, that there's too many similarities. Obinga is that's his area. He's a linguist. He's one of the leading authorities on Medu Neter. Like, he's the world's leading authority on ancient Egyptian writing. Medu Neter. They got a university named after him that he's the dean of in the Congo. They started a university, Théophile Obinga University in Brazzaville. So anyway, I'm landing on this point to say that there's too much evidence that points that there's been migrations from the Nile Valley and to the Nile Valley, right, from West Africa and the Congo, other parts of Africa. Too much evidence. And guess who they took from West Africa and the Congo and Central Africa? They took us. And spiritually, I'm a Babalawo. Spiritually, I have found that my ancestors have told me they came through mediumistic stuff, that they came from that place, Kemet. So that's another level of information.
Did you just say spiritually?
Can I
it all corroborates.
Hey, Donis, can I say something real quick?
Hold on.
Can I say something real quick?
Let me hold on. Let me. Who's that? Star Studded? That you?
No, that's King.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, King, you got 30 seconds. Go ahead, man.
Okay, so some people have like this weird notion inside their head where they think like Africans, they just stayed in one spot, they never moved around, they never traveled their continent. You know, we just stayed in one spot and we waited for Europeans and Arabs to come and show us how to do things. You know, there's quote unquote Afro-Asiatic tribes in West Africa, which proves that the people in West Africa, they came from East Africa, such as it's the house of the house of people.
The Hausa, thank you.
Yeah, the Hausa people, they speak an Afro-Asiatic language, you know. And also my tribe, right? The Wolof people, right? You know, we resemble very much the Dinka and the Nuer tribes of South Sudan. We're pretty dark, just like them. We're tall. We got the same culture. We have a wrestling style in Senegal called Lamba, you know, and they also have the same type of wrestling style too. And we also see the same wrestling style on the temple walls, right? You know, I'm gonna read something here right now. So it says, Ajang Garang, the father of the Nuer and the Dang, which is the Dinka and the Jang and Wal. It says that Wal migrated to West Africa during the breakdown of Kush Kingdom. Some of his descendants are in Gambia and Mauritania, and they also bear the names Wal, Dang, Wal, and Ngor. So it said in South Sudan, they have a name called Deng, Ngor, and Deng. In Senegal, we have the same name, right? In South Sudan, they have a name. It's called Lajor, Taban, Deng, Cham, and Gay. Senegal, we have the same exact names. So it proves that we are connected to the South Sudanese people, which is the Dinka, the Nuer, etc., right? And those people, you know, Sudan is right under Egypt. You know, if you look at the temple wall drawings, you know, you see the Nilotic people,
Bro,
you know, the same culture.
Let me pass it to Alquan and D Red. Go ahead, Alquan.
Yeah. Now I have heard a white scholar, I forgot his name, but he did say that Egypt did start in the Western Sahara, and I think he stressed Sahara for a reason. But I mean, we can make Egypt have connections with Africa, but at the same time, like I mentioned earlier, you have ancient Libya. They weren't exactly trying to make any connections with Egypt. You know, they were just busy trying to take it over, which they did at one point in time. Same thing with the Nubians. So, you know, they had their distinct cultures as well. So when we can't just skip over Egypt, skip over Libya and then jump over to West Africa and then say that, okay, well, these are Egyptians now. But I'm sure like New York, like the United States, Egyptian culture did spread. Obviously, it spread into Canaan, which is in Asia. Things don't stop at Africa now. They go other places, Cyprus. You know, we got to understand as far as, let me say this about Cleopatra. She was obviously mixed, and
that's
white.
Not true.
It is true. And white
It's
scholars.
true. Her grandmother was Egyptian.
And white scholars, they always call her the last native Egyptian ruler. I'm done.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
And she was not. She was clearly white. You could look at the
her grandmother was Egyptian.
Can I finish?
She wasn't.
Go ahead.
You could look at the archaeological evidence. You could look at the statues and images created of her father, who was clearly a Macedonian Greek, and the mother, and clearly see that there's nothing African about neither one of those two people. I mean, it's as simple as a Google search. If you want to look at
actually, it's not that simple, to be honest with you.
Listen, I got you, but listen, there's no way that person. It'd be the equivalent of me saying that Prince Harry is not Prince Harry, but Archie is a black man.
Okay, would it be the same as saying that Halle Berry was a black woman?
I could say that Meghan Markle's mother, his grandmother, is actually a black woman, a light-skinned black woman, and he comes from a white man. But that is a whole white man. It's the same thing.
Well, is it the same as saying Halle Berry was a white woman?
Cleopatra would have looked like Meghan Markle.
All right, let's pass it to D Red. Go ahead.
Oh shit, what it do, man? This is an interesting conversation. Cause I think I agree with the one brother that said that we act like West Africa was a force field and we was just stuck there. You know what I'm saying? and that people that were migrating back and forth. I posted a couple uh, things in the back chat for people to check out if you want to check out the book Oxford.
No. The point I'm making is the Black Americans in America today are more related to West Africa than they are anything Kemet.
Well, I'm not going to preface it with Kemet, but we gotta look at where did those West Africans come from. When we
West
talk about
Africa.
no,
West
again,
Africans, we come from West Africa. We come from West
I
Africa.
agree. That's why I post. This is why I post sources. When the click that I roll with, we create the whole term source up and shit up. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I drop sources in the back chat. You see, you can read the genetic evidence from the article is called West African Forages in Context of African Population History. You see what I'm saying? It'll tell you that the ancient West Africans that most people think that they descend from, the foragers, are not the same people who are in West Africa today. The population replacement happened. If you read the Oxford Handbook of Nigerian History, it will tell you that around 2000 BC, that's when the modern day people that you see in West Africa today, migrated there on a. And I posted the preface of the quote. And I'm gonna read the quote. It said, as the Sahara once again became drier about 5,000 years ago, pastoralism spread from its Saharan origins toward a Western Africa along a northeast-southwest axis. This is what the scholars are saying. So it migrated from a northeast to a southwest axis. So people migrated there. The original people there were haplogroups A and B. You know what I'm saying? But most of us who are African American, we're haplogroup E. Haplogroup E migrated there. Point blank, period. You can't get around it.
Well, I mean,
There.
they had to have migrated if the original man came from Ethiopia, right?
No, see, I agree with Dynas. We need to focus more on like West African like civilizations because that's where most of us come from. West Africa had a lot of civilization from ancient time, even
Wait,
in like
brother.
the BC era. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, guys, listen, right? Europeans, they based their civilization off of ancient Greece and Rome, right? You know, even today in America, right? America looks towards the ancient Greco-Roman Empire. You know, if you look at the Statue of Liberty, if you look at how the White House is built, you know, it's all coming from ancient Greece and Rome, right? And we all know that all white people aren't related to, you know, the Romans. The Romans were more like Mediterranean types, you know, they were not like Nordics, right? But even still today, you know, we still see, you know, like the Nordic type Europeans looking to ancient Greece and Rome for, you know, influence, right? You know, they they say that the epitome of Western civilization was in Rome, right? And you don't see them saying, "Oh, guys, we're not from Rome. We come from this place. You know, we should focus on our country. We don't come from Rome." They don't do that. But it's only black people that do that. You know, ancient Kemet and Kush, it marks a time in history when black people were at the top. We had the most influential spiritual system. We had the best art, the best architecture, the strongest armies. You know, it marks a time in history when black African power was ruling the earth, right? You know, and all we're saying is that we should look towards them, you know, to base our civilization off of, right? Because they have proven their culture to have been effective, right? Just like how the white people look towards ancient Greece and Rome. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Makes
It
sense.
absolutely makes sense. And it was the zenith of African culture. It was the zenith, but it didn't get to be that without the input of Africa all around, because there was influence coming in to the Nile Valley and going out of the Nile Valley. Information was going out. So, but it doesn't take away. It doesn't take away from Mapinguwe or Mali or Songhai or Timbuktu. What's happening? It doesn't take away from that. It just gives the full picture, and we have to give credit.
We gotta stop pretending like it was all African contribution to Egypt. We can't do that now.
Right.
The problem that I got with this narrative is that it's based on the premise that nothing was going on in West Africa until somebody from Kemet came there and made it happen.
But
Nah,
no,
brother,
No, no,
brother,
West Africa had its civilization too.
listen, right? Listen. Kemet
There was
fell
a
first, right?
civilization before Ghana.
Ancient Egypt fell first, right? And then after, when Egypt fell, Kush was still standing in Sudan, and then the Aksumite Empire, which is current day, Ethiopia, they are the reason why the Kush Empire fell. Once Kush fell, those Africans started migrating out, right? And during that time, we start seeing the Mali Empire start coming about, the Songhai Empire start coming about, the Benin Kingdom. Because that's where they went. That's
There's
and I
some
can prove it.
older
I can prove it. I can prove it.
There's some
Because
older empires
listen,
than
the
Kemet.
problem is that we haven't had adequate archaeological excavation in West Africa because most people assume that there's nothing there of value. But every time they
There
do
is.
take the time, to do archaeological studies in various places in West Africa and understand that West Africa is not a monolith, right? But when they do look, they find things that cause them to rewrite the history books. The first examples of pottery, the second oldest examples of pottery in the world was found in Mali, in West Africa. At the same time when Greece was reaching its golden age in the Niger River Valley, in the Niger River region, that area was full of urbanized,
Not
centralized,
culture.
organized civilizations.
But no Stone Age,
Okay,
right?
so
Denying that and taking
no, they
away
were
from
not Stone Age. They were not Stone Age.
So that means
We went in
that means
Africa, in West
they weren't as
Africa.
developed as they needed to be.
No,
A lot of
in
West African monuments
Africa.
that stand are made out of mud.
No, in West
No.
Africa.
I think
In
it's
West
you that
Africa,
have a
they
block.
went directly from the Stone Age to the Iron Age, and the archaeological evidence shows that Iron Age technology developed independently right there in West Africa. It did not come from East Africa or North Africa. This is what I'm saying. We need to spend more time investigating our ancestral civilizations in West Africa instead of looking to East Africa,
Why
because
can't we
we assume that nothing worthwhile happened in West Africa. So
Why
this
do we
is why
why
we
can't
got this
claim it all?
narrative that it had to come from someplace
Right.
else.
Maybe
It
guys
did
like you
not.
need to champion
I
that.
agree with
You're
him.
reiterating yourself.
I agree
But
with him.
Let me pass it to Bree. Go ahead, Bree.
I
Bree.
agree with him 100%.
No, the only thing I was going to say was that I agree with the previous gentleman that there hasn't been adequate research, at least brought over to us here in the U.S., of all the things that were happening in West Africa, because we know that these civilizations existed. Some actually predated Egypt, and there's a school of thought that Egypt
Yes.
got a lot of its ideas inspired from these West African nations, which is why when the brother earlier said the Ankh is found all over Africa, because of trade, because of migration from West Africa. So rather than us debating about what Cleopatra looked like, we need to debate what did our civilization
right.
look
And people
like.
are
What can
doing
we
that work.
find there?
Maybe you don't know about it,
Absolutely.
but people are doing that work and have been doing that work. You got to listen to Robin Walker talk about West Africa, and he talks about Jinn. Before it was a mosque, Jinn was like a palace, a king's palace or something. Talks about the early invasions of Timbuktu or as a learning center, that when Islam came during Mansa Musa's time, they destroyed a lot of the information when Islam came into that area. But
I know the work must be pretty hard because nobody could seem to find too much.
There's the Soninke, and the Soninke is the
No.
beginnings of the Ghana Empire.
I mean,
the Soninke people.
erasure
well,
is
yeah,
This is
definitely
the
a
early.
thing.
This is the early
Erasure is a
information.
thing.
North
Because look at
Africa,
Egypt. In
right?
Egypt,
But
they
North.
erased a lot of their identity. And so it wouldn't be too far-fetched to say that other conquerors could have erased our identity in West
But those
Africa. Just a
pyramids still
thought.
stand, and a lot of the monuments still stand. But in West Africa, the best you got, and I'm not trying to diss, but I'm being real. You got Timbuktu made out of mud, and it's not even symmetrical.
Because you have to understand something. You have to understand something.
Cave
Every
markings in
society.
Libya. They've got cave markings in Libya where they have rock paintings in Libya that predate way like 5,000 years ago, which shows that there were cultures in the time when Sahara wasn't even a desert, right?
But they still didn't leave behind stone buildings, though.
Well,
no, I'm
why
just saying
should
that's
they? Why do they
Because
have?
everybody else did. Everybody else did.
Who cares about what
Have you ever
else
heard of
did?
Great Zimbabwe?
Our
Have you
ancestors-
ever heard of Great Zimbabwe?
That's not West Africa. That's not West Africa, and it's not symmetrical either.
It's even older than that.
Listen.
Great Zimbabwe is symmetrical. What are you talking about?
It's not symmetrical. It's uneven walls. It's not straight lines.
Build with stone.
There's a problem here because everybody. Why are we always comparing ourselves to what other people did? This is what I'm talking about. There's a problem in that we do not value ourselves. Our ancestors.
That's not what I'm saying.
Listen to what I'm saying. Our ancestors in West Africa did not place the same value on monumental architecture because they had a different culture.
But how do you know this though? How do you know this?
That's fine.
Because it's still there and it's still alive.
What's still there?
Wait, I also want to say this too, right? I also want to say this too, right?
Where are the buildings at?
Wait, I want to say this too, right? There was a pyramid. There was a pyramid. Hold on, real quick, right?
What was available to them?
Real quick, right? There was a pyramid in the Great Benin Kingdom, right? You can find images of it online, but it was destroyed by the British. Also, the Igbo people, they also created, like step pyramidal structures, and they destroyed those too.
So two things. But mostly we see right now, we see mud structures. And that's really
even before Ghana, West Africa built with stone.
I tell you what's wrong with mud structures. You have to keep You have to keep rebuilding and adding mud to it all the time, or it disappears.
That's not necessarily the best archaeological indicators.
See, no, look, the reason why West Africa,
not even mud brick either.
Right, but
just
there's
full
other
mud structure.
archaeological things you can look at. Even
it's
oral
mud
tradition,
brick.
The oral tradition of Ifa is older than 10,000 years. The oral tradition of
Exactly.
Ifa is over 10,000 years.
That's fine and all, but we look at Greece, we look at Rome, we look at Egypt.
You are looking at Greece.
No, we are looking at it. We look at we see the stone structures, architecture.
Why?
Because that's what we can see. That's what we can see today.
For example, right? Papyrus.
You need to get more exposure. There's a brother named Shaka that talks about the Twa's importance and how they taught the other groups, Africans around them, how to do agriculture. This is way back. In fact, the Twa are the ones who built Kush. They were the ones who founded Kush. And the Khoisan is as old, and maybe they say even older than the Twa, but they're the same people. So we're not even talking about the oldest cultures until you talk about those two groups. You're not talking about the oldest cultures.
But we got to talk about people who took stone, designed, made architecture, and built up stone buildings.
Why are we comparing ourselves to the Western world when we have?
Sir, that's not the Western world. That's ancient Egypt. That's Nubia.
Why are we comparing ourselves to someplace else that's not?
Because it's in Africa, and it shows you the development of people. That's what it shows you.
We had development. What about the intangible culture? What about our spiritual philosophy?
Man, that's BS. Spiritual stuff. Spiritual stuff is BS.
So let's think about the pyramid.
There you go. And therein lies the rub. We do not value it.
One mic. Let Bree speak. One mic.
Brother, can I get in the conversation right quick?
One mic. Let Bree speak. Go ahead, Bree.
I just wanted to say, when we think about like Egyptian culture with the pyramids, because the other gentleman who's speaking, he keeps talking about stone structures, building monuments. Those monuments were made to make Pharaoh feel like God, right? Or closer to God. Maybe in West African culture, I'm not the most versed in this, but maybe that wasn't our culture to have a monument last 100 years so we could make humans feel closer to God. Maybe that wasn't part of our.
No, it was a part of our culture.
Exactly.
You need to study.
It was a part of our culture. Listen, right?
You can educate me.
Yeah, listen. The founder of the Songhai Empire, his name was Sunni Ali Burr, right? And this guy, this king, he was adamant on keeping African traditions alive in West Africa.
Even though his name was Ali, right?
Yeah, no, that's because listen. That's because after he died, Arab-centric Negroes in West Africa, they Arabized him, but his real name wasn't Sonny Ali Bird. But this king, right? He wanted to keep African traditions alive in West Africa. He lived during a time when West Africa was heavily getting, Islamicized, right? And he fought hard to keep traditions alive. And they said that when he died, he was mummified and he was also put in a tomb. And you can look these tombs up online.
So, family, we have a story
Okay,
that
what
predates Kemet.
century
Our
was?
story
Yeah,
predates ancient
that's
Egypt or
exactly
Kemet,
what I was
right?
about to say. What
Thank
century was
you.
he?
That story that predates Kemet has to do with East Central Africa. It has to do with East Africa, South Africa, Central Africa. That's the earlier parts of that
Unless you want to go there
predates.
one by house.
And then you see the Niger Congo group migrating into West Africa and into
Yeah,
also founding the Nile Valley civilizations. This is the puzzle and the piece that is coming together as time goes on more and more. We're beginning to understand how these groups moved and who was what. Even the Dogon said when they got to the Bandagari Cliffs, there was a people there. There were short people there called Telem. They were very light-skinned, kind of light-skinned. Sounds like the Khoisan to me, right? Khoisan are kind of fair-skinned people.
Yeah,
And they're
that's true.
short like
They said they were all over
tribes.
Africa, though.
So yeah, so these are, and then when we listen to when we interact with each other and the people that are living in Africa now and listen to their history, they'll give you part of the story of how things is and what connects to what. If you're not listening to that and you're just kind of trying to use your common sense to say this is what makes sense in Dynasty Amir's room, we get that. But there are people who have done a little more research and people that have done a whole lot more research.
There's research and then there's research.
Right, and there's audio, then there's the visual. Some of the visual has more impact than the audio and hearsay from thousands of years ago.
Listen, you have to take into consideration what I was saying before, the intangible culture, because Egypt didn't make stone monuments in a vacuum. What they made was a reflection of their worldview and what their priorities were at the time.
Right, and then their worldview was that sticks and mud don't last longer than stone.
We have a different worldview in West Africa. For example, in Nigeria, we don't have this concept that you're going to go to some paradise and you got to preserve your body. We believe in reincarnation. We have a very developed, very sophisticated
in reincarnation
spiritual philosophy.
But see, West Africa is not a culture, it's not a people, it's not a country. So
the bigger picture
what are you talking about?
It's the many different cultures. I'm speaking about one specific culture.
Hold on. One mic. Go ahead, Bree. Go ahead.
I'm going to go in a minute. I just wanted to make one last point that whoever's the victor, whoever's the conqueror, they get to rewrite the history. So a lot of what we've learned comes from a white lens. So that's why there's this ignorance of the West and dismissing of the West and wanting to point as Egyptians being totally different and and yes, they were mixed, but I think their civilization may not be as old as Western Africa. That was the last point I wanted to make. But
well, their artifacts show.
Wait, brother. To the brother that's asking about like stone structures and stuff like that. If you look at the pyramids, right, they're shaped in how the traditional African hut, right. If you look at the traditional African quote-unquote hut, how it's like pyramid shaped, they were trying to imitate that. You know.
How do you know that? Because the goal was the true pyramid. It wasn't an African hut.
But the reason we're arguing like this and we don't know the story of the history, more of the story. I'm not saying that we're going to know the whole story of human history, but we don't know more of the history because African culture and people are under attack. And that Arab dude that was talking that might got a little blood mixed in with him, or a little African mixed in with him, is the perfect example of how they're trying to squirm and fight and try to make themselves something different than who they are. And this is the whole problem I think that we're dealing with now is that we have to erase the white man's mystery and with the true history, right? And that's what we're doing now. We're discussing this. It's important, but that's why we're discussing this is because it's
the problem is West Africans, as you call them, they don't even know the true history. That's the problem.
Can I get in this conversation right quick?
Dude, you talking crazy. All right, go ahead, Max P.
No, but I'm saying that's who we need to hear it from first.
Go ahead, Max P.
Well, but I also think
Max
that
P. Hold on. Max P. Unmute yourself, Max P. Max P. All right, going once, going twice. Okay, all right. Guys, links in the chat room. Links in the chat room. If you want to call in after the conversation, click on the link. If you want to call in and add to the conversation, please click on a link in the chat room.
Hey, Dynast, I want to go back to the original topic at hand, which is about these Arab Egyptians and in Egypt, right? You know, if you look up the official title of Egypt, go look it up. The official title of Egypt is the Arab Republic of Egypt. Nobody in Africa prior to the Arabs coming in referred to themselves as Arabs. The Egyptians, they didn't refer to themselves as the ancient Egyptians, the Kemetu people, they didn't refer to themselves as Arabs. Nobody else in Africa referred to themselves as Arabs. So how come they refer to themselves as Arabs
I can
today?
tell you why. I can tell you why.
Okay, not only that, one last thing, right? A couple years ago, right? This was a long time ago in Egypt. The Egyptian people, they were mad at the government because the government was making so much money off of these ancient monuments and artifacts that they went into the museum and they started destroying artifacts, ancient Egyptian artifacts. During that time, during that time, they didn't believe that Egypt belonged to them. But now they say, oh, it belongs to us, right? And also, if you look at ISIS, right, the Islamic terroristic organization, they go into museums and they destroy ancient artifacts because they say it goes against Allah, right? Because the Arabs, they practice Islam, and also,
all the time Muslims ruled, they kept all ancient stuff around. So you got to explain that one.
Okay, and also, but people like to say Alexander the Great. He was the one that destroyed. He was the one that defaced the Sphinx. No, it wasn't him. No. But before him, there was an Arab, and he destroyed the Sphinx because people used to go to the Sphinx and worship the Sphinx. And he said that, oh, this goes against Allah. So he destroyed the Sphinx, and now we have these same Muslims, these same Arabs, and now they're saying, oh, we belong to the civilization. They are Arabs. They refer to themselves as Arabs.
No, they're not, and I can explain to you why
that is.
Now
I agree with Truth Teacher now.
Can other people be able to contribute?
That whole thing is because of politics. This whole thing of Egyptians calling themselves Arab is very recent. It began with the 1952 revolution in Egypt against the Ottoman Empire. And the reason why they did that is because they wanted to make a political alliance with Arabic-speaking nations against the Western imperialists, okay? Egyptians are not Arabs. They're Arabized. They're not Arabs in anymore.
Who conquered Egypt after the Romans?
Who conquered after the Arabs? The Ottoman Turks.
No, I didn't ask that. I asked who conquered Egypt after the Romans. It was
that doesn't matter.
Who never left?
Doesn't matter.
The Ottoman Turks.
Replace the people. Just like in Mexico, the people there speak Spanish as the primary language. That doesn't mean that you don't have indigenous people still there, but because they were conquered.
Nobody's saying that there aren't indigenous.
And that's what I'm saying. You cannot call the modern Egyptian people. You cannot call the modern Egyptian people Arabs because they are not Arabs.
They're not all
in the
Arabs.
true sense of the word.
I agree with you. They're
Young
not
man,
all Arabs. They're mixed.
Yes.
But there is a
And
majority.
to give you
the majority
an
of the people
example,
are Arabs,
right now, what language are we speaking right now?
What does that have to do with the majority of
what language? Answer the question. What language?
Yeah, answer his question.
What language
Let the brother
are we
teach.
speaking right now?
English.
English. When you go to church, where your grandparents go to church, what African religion are they following?
Hoodoo.
You damn well know that your parents don't go to church on Sunday to go do no hoodoo.
But they have hoodoo's also
Stop
on the
the
side.
cap.
I mean, but there are African
Christians.
remnants. There are African
They
remnants.
are Christians.
There's African retentions within the belief system of African Americans.
There's African retentions everywhere, but that is not the dominant.
Yeah.
You are predominantly Christian.
You're
You speak.
predominantly colonized. You're
You are
indoctrinated,
Christian.
colonized. So
Dude, you don't even know who the hell I am. I'm not Egyptian, okay?
Okay, so what's your point?
My point is, you cannot disrespect a people and try to rip them from their ancestry. That is disrespectful, and it's not true.
Okay, so if their
They
ancestry,
are Arabs in the same sense that we are English. We are speaking English
okay,
right now.
right.
Most of us
So
follow a Christian religion from Europe.
if they're
We are not
descendants of
English.
Egypt, if they're descendants of
We
Egypt,
are
then
not English.
I'm not
A
arguing
lot
that.
of us have
If they're
European
descendants,
admixture.
of Egyptian or Kemetic culture, right? They're going to retain some of the culture. They're going to be
And
practicing
they
something.
do. When is the last time you've been to Egypt?
What?
My dude, when is the last time you have been to Egypt?
I've never been
When
to
were you
Egypt,
there?
but I'm in contact
Okay,
with
then.
people.
So then you
I'm
don't
in
know what the
contact with
fuck you're
people who are
talking
always going.
about.
He can know what he's talking about without having to go to Egypt.
There.
When's the last
I've
time
been
you've been to
going there
Egypt?
since I'm 18 years old.
When's the
Okay,
last time
I
you've been to
know. 2009.
But how do you know what the ancient Egyptian culture was, though?
Right.
There's a lot of the culture that still exists there. Egypt is the one place that I've been to more than anywhere else in the world.
I'm talking about the spiritual
You
system.
do not know. I am trying to tell you. You are ignorant of the people that you are trying to talk about.
Tell me what
You
retentions
don't
of the spiritual
know.
system are. I'm asking you. Tell us.
Of the spiritual system? Well, let's look at history. Why don't they follow the ancient religion?
Let's look at today.
Because they were, young man. First of all, you're speaking to somebody who's almost 60 years old, probably old enough to be a damn grandfather. I'm
older
trying
than
to
you.
tell you something.
I'm older than you.
Uh-oh.
Well, then you have not been to where I have been. You have not seen
we're
what I
asking
have
you to tell
seen.
us. You're
And I'm trying.
asking
Well,
to tell
if you stop talking, maybe I could.
I got a question.
Okay, first we have to look at what happened to that ancient religion. It was abandoned because when the Roman Empire made Christianity the official religion of the empire, they banned the ancient religion under pain of death. So that whole system was wiped out. However, if you go into the rural areas, there are still retentions of the folk religion that still survive to this day.
But you understand, Roman, they didn't conquer all of what is modern Egypt.
Wait, are you saying in Egypt they still practice the religion?
Listen to what I said.
Because that's not true at all, bro.
Listen to what I said. If you go to certain areas in Egypt, there are still retentions of folk religion that still exists.
And what is folk
There's
religion?
a tradition of the Tsar.
Can you give us examples of this?
Yeah, what is the folk
The
religion
Tsar.
related to the Memphite theology?
The Tsar, excuse me, the Tsar cults, which are very much similar to what we do in other parts of Africa, which are nature-based.
You can't compare. Remember, you can't compare different parts of Africa. You can't do that.
It's found in many different places. If you look at this
Tsar.
Z-A-R.
Z-A-R.
Go look it up. Tsar cult in Egypt. You find it in Egypt, you find it in Sudan, you find it in Ethiopia, you find it all the way down to Somalia. It still exists in Egypt. Certain traditions, for example, they have a birth ritual. After a child is born, they have this tradition called the sabua. They put the child in a sieve, and then they ring a bell in its ear and they bless it. You can see those depictions on the temple walls. That still exists.
Now, if we eat spaghetti or pizza and Italians pass that down to us, does that have anything to do with us?
And I'm trying to tell you something. Those rituals still exist. There's a tradition in Upper Egypt, in Luxor. They call it Mulid Abu Hagag, which is the continuation of the Opet festival that used to happen in ancient Egypt, where they used to take the barge of Amun from the Karnak temple and bring it to Luxor temple. The people still to this day practice that celebration, where they march through the streets with boats that are reminiscent of the ancient barges that brought Amun from the temple.
What are
All
they
right, can
called?
I can I ask you a
What are they
question?
called?
Enough. Let some other
Right,
person.
right.
Let others chime in now.
Hey,
Okay.
go ahead. Two Nigel, then we'll pass it to Rokoya.
Yeah.
Go ahead, two Nigel.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Diners, and greetings to everyone on the panel, the chat, and to the viewers. At the core of the topic was about Cleopatra and why some Arab people think that we are trying to claim their heritage. Um, Nobody is saying that if you look at Egypt today, they look like West Africans. The idea is that they are trying to claim a civilization that didn't originate, and that is at the core of this. The originators of the civilization and the builders of the pyramid. That is the argument that a lot of people are having. And if you look at even the stela, the Nama palette from Egypt, you can tell very clearly that Nama and his followers that conquered northern Egypt, they look different from the northern Egyptians. The southern Egyptians, well, that's where the culture started from. And the capital of Egypt was 1,000 kilometers away from the Mediterranean Sea. It was the Greeks that built Alexander close to the Mediterranean Sea. So Egyptians didn't relate to outside Africans as much as they related to the Tasseti culture. And even they are even talking about going further back than Nama, because there were kings before even Nama came, the first Egyptian king to unite the kingdoms. So these people were the kind of people you call the Kush culture. That they came from they are from the Nile culture. They went on, and that's why Egypt, whenever you see foreigners coming or there's an upheaval, the unity of Egypt tends to come from the south. That's when it comes to uniting the kingdom. It tends to come from the south, because those are the ones that actually founded this in the kingdom. That said, people forget how quickly phenotypical features can change. We are all alive today. We know when people, white and black, they get married, they have a child, how different that child would look. And if that child goes on to marry another person from one of the culture, they will just start becoming more biased towards that in that direction. In 200 years, just 10 times in one direction without changing direction, the other genetic lineage will completely almost disappear. And if that can happen, and as a matter of fact, I've heard somebody say, one scientist that was talking about that, if you look at the statues in the Babylon before now, compared to the ones that are in Persia, the ancient ones, compared to the Persians that live there now, their hair is straight. Their hair is literally straight. But the ancient ones, their hair is not straight. So you can see there are differences. People change over time, and there's a reason why they change. Because people are flocking in. It's even documented in the Bible. They are flocking in. They are flocking in from outside Africa. It was until the Arabs even came into Africa before they started seeing camels in Egypt. It just shows how do you see camels with this in the Egyptians? Because they don't have anything to do with them. They didn't relate to them then. It was more recently, and the Sahara didn't do us any favor. The Sahara was drying up and pushing the Africans further down southwards. It's still happening today. That's how you know the truth, actually. It's still happening till this very day. And Arabization is still happening till this very day. That conflict you see going on in Sudan is part of it. That is still going on till this very day. So they keep pushing the Africans, the black ones, further and further south. And they are claiming the north
And
more and more
Mauritania
every
too.
single day.
Mauritania.
So, and there is this Sarah religion that goes back thousands of years that have been doing mummification all the way in the Gambian area. This is West African civilizations that when people, I think I subscribe to when somebody said the civilization West Africa is not isolated from everyone else. I don't know why people think West Africa is isolated. There is water everywhere. There's land everywhere connecting West Africa to other parts. Why is it thing that they have not taken over West Africa before? The Kush kingdom, while the Romans took over Egypt, they couldn't take over the Kush kingdom right next door to Egypt. Not because they didn't try, but they couldn't defeat just a one-eyed queen from Kush. They had to sign a peace deal with her. So if you think that the argument is that we West Africans, I think that's where Dynast is coming from. Why are we not embracing our own culture? You can separate it from even the Egyptians, because the key argument with the Egyptian one is that we don't want an African accomplishment to be stolen by other people. So that's one side. But West Africa has a lot. I just mentioned the Sere religion That goes back thousands of years. These are people that were doing mummification. Arabs don't even know anything about that. They don't even do
That's the
mummification
point
at all.
I was trying to make. Exactly.
So, and if you are looking for symmetry, look at their arts. The Nok culture goes back thousands of years, and their arts has symmetry. There's some of the lost wax method that they use in the bronze that they do in Benin. The Europeans had to learn from them. They didn't even know that technique before. So there are so many things Africans have accomplished. The first writing in the world, the oldest writing they've discovered, goes back up to 50,000 years on an ostrich shell in South Africa. All the way in South Africa, the first mathematics that they can deduce from history goes back thousands of years. Was found in the Great Lakes somewhere in Africa there. So the Shango bone, the Shango bone. So some of all these things is what culminated, because you know how the Sahara was drying up, is what culminated in, is what stimulated the a kind of ignited the civilization in Egypt, because most were navigating to migrating towards the south, which was West Africa, and others were moving east, and some were moving west. But they ended up in Egypt, it sparked the civilization, and that's what you got there. And there are other African civilizations. The longest lasting civilization in Africa, West Africa, where West African civilization, not the Arabic ones. The Arabic ones, they lasted 200-300 years. They faded away. The Benin one lasted almost 900 years. The Ghana one lasted just as long. So Africans have always had civilization. Some of our inventions is what they use. The religion that they use today is also been found out that the creation myth that is beneath all the creation myths in the world originated from Africa. This is not me making it up. They are the ones studying it. They are the ones saying it themselves. Religion itself, they got it from us. This Afro-Asiatic language that they call Afro-Asiatic language, we were the ones that were speaking it. They took it from us. Most of these things we think to copy from them, they got it from us. I put a link in the chat that shows that in Nigeria recently, we just found somebody did a research and said there was this culture in Nigeria that speaks like the Chinese. Question is, where did they come from? Are they the ones that seeded the Chinese kingdom, or did the Chinese come to Nigeria? Clearly, they didn't come to Nigeria, and they speak like the Chinese. Some of the words are still the same. That is how ridiculous it is.
My teacher found them doing acupuncture with pine needles in Cameroon. These were short rainforest people. This must have been the Benga or somebody. They were doing, this is my teacher from Ghana, said he went to Cameroon and they were doing, putting these things in the meridian points that the Chinese use in their medicine, Chinese medicine.
Yeah, and you see, you can even go for the Egyptians themselves. They tell you where they came from.
D1 beats the Arabs from West Asia are the dominant majority, along with Islam being introduced since the 7th century, with the traditional Africans pushed south. Okay. Let me pass it to I can't pronounce his name. Cash Goody, God. I can't pronounce that. Go ahead.
No, it's Cash God. I just misspelled it. I got a question for Alquan.
What's going on?
Alquan, you claim to be Indian, right? So
we don't want to change the topic tonight.
No, I just want to.
No, he does. He's an
Aboriginal. He claimed to be Indian. He's not African. He got several videos making fun of Africans. So
no, I don't.
What are you doing on the African panel? That's just.
Well, actually, I'll be honest with you, sir. I happen to be an expert in African history and various cultures and whatnot. So that's why this was a topic of interest to me.
If you happen to be, if you happen to be an expert, how come you can't show me your Indian history in America?
What does that have to do with Africa, sir?
Where are your kingdoms, your kings and queens? You know, your black kings and queens of ancient America.
The topic today is Egypt and Africa.
No, I'm asking you. You show me your history in the America.
But sir, when you come on a man's channel, you must stick to the topic, sir.
No, but I'm
asking
can you tell us about your hold on 1 second. Can you tell us about your indigenous Aboriginal people here in America? Like, are they from North Dakota or
sir? I know this is your show, but we would derail the conversation if we start going into another direction.
Nah, you're deflecting. I just need you to just show me your history. What religion practice did you?
Well, right now we're worried about West African.
Yeah, but that's a good question. Hold on, bro. Alcon, what's your indigenous Aboriginal American language, and like where? Like, tell me about your people and all that. Like,
Well, no,
food,
well,
safety.
I'll be honest with you. First, let me give a shout out to Information Man, number one. And two, I really like to keep it on the topic because this is a topic that doesn't seem to have a resolution because everybody has different perspectives.
So how can you be an expert on African history and you can't even show me your history in the
Well, sir,
America?
it's like you're an African, but if you worked at a pizza shop, you might end up becoming a pizza expert.
You deflecting. You're not answering my question.
Yeah, because it's derailing the
Okay.
Here's an
conversation.
African point.
Where are your
What do you
village?
know about the Khoisan being the Africans that started the human, beings in that part of the world that turned into the Clovis and then Clovis Folsom that then turned into the Algonquin that then turned into the Inuit that then later turned into these Asiatics that came through 10,000 years ago. So what do you know about the Khoisan? That's Africa. Those are African people coming into the Americas, starting the Aboriginal people. What do you know about that?
Actually, you might know more than me because it's the first time I heard about that.
Oh boy.
But Angkor, you're supposed to tell us, you're supposed to have all the evidence of your people in ancient America.
Right now, we're talking about ancient Africa. So
you need to teach us about your history. I want to learn about your Indian history.
I mean, Alcon.
in
Hold
America.
on.
I'll tell you what, Dynast, when you do a show on that, I'll be glad to come back.
Alcon, but
What-
Alcon,
what
hold on.
village you from?
Cash. Alcon. Listen, you have 1 minute. Tell us about your culture, your foods. Are you Aboriginal to Buffalo, New York? North Dakota.
Black
where you from?
Eskimo?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, sir,
Eskimo.
I appreciate you letting me on, but I really like to keep it on topic.
Okay, no problem. All right, Zoo.
Okay, that's all I had.
All right, no problem, Cash. Thank you, brother. Zoo 221. Go ahead.
Peace, Dynast. Peace to the panel. I was gonna comment on the whole Egypt thing. Give my perspective. Being someone that's part from the U.S. and part from Senegal. We also have a perspective that we have some origins from that area through the oral traditions. That being here nor there, it's in the oral traditions. It's part of the earliest oral traditions. And I feel like those deserve to be interrogated scientifically. But it seems like people really just come with opinions most times.
I'm open to hearing anything if it's archaeological, linguistic, genetic evidence to support it, then hey, I have to accept it. But so far, I haven't seen anything. I mean,
All right,
I can
listen.
say that, for example, in certain areas, you can see that there is a connection. For example, you do see with the Kenumborno, yeah, we can definitely see there was a migration from east to west. That is very clear. And where there is evidence,
God
it's
and border.
obvious.
That was Chad, right? That was Chad.
Somewhere in that area, I don't really remember off the top of my head.
Chad,
But like,
Niger.
for example, you go
Who is
to
we, though?
Sudan. You go to Sudan today, and there are West African. Gosh, what is the name of these people that are living in Sudan, but they migrated from West Africa? I can't remember.
Talking about Fulani
the
people.
exact- Well, there's Fulanis there too, but there's another group that's also there, and I can't remember their name right now.
You know they practice.
It's just
Oh, wait a
strange to
minute,
me.
Hausa,
It's just
Hausa,
strange to me that people
Hausa.
feel like there's no connection when obviously
There's houses there.
even
I
speaking
mean,
of the
but
Fulani,
what I'm saying is
cut
that
me
where
off
there
before I
are
was even done,
connections,
so
because I wasn't finished speaking.
I was
Where there
speaking
are
before you cut
connections,
me off, sir.
where there are
He
connections,
hasn't made his submission.
it's obvious. It's obvious. And so, like I'm saying, if there's evidence there, I will accept it. And whatever concepts that I have, hey, if you show me evidence, I'm going to have to say, you know what? This is what I used to think. But based on the evidence that I've been shown, now I know, blah, 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 blah.
Hey, to that speaker that was just speaking, right? Are you familiar with like the ancient Egyptian like artifacts and their paintings? Have you seen them? Like a lot of them?
Once again, Egypt is the one place in the world that I've spent the most time in my life.
Yeah, so if you look at how the Egyptians dressed, right, and they wore something called the broad collar. If you look at the Nguni tribes in South Africa, like the Zulus, the Xhosa, they wear the same clothing, bro.
Which is basically nothing, right?
No,
no,
I
that's
mean,
not true.
No, because
He's denying that.
Broad collars,
represents
because
industry.
listen, here's the thing. Egyptian, that was a native African civilization. There were migrations. Yes, I mean, obviously, if the human race started off in East Africa, that means they had to migrate from East Africa into all different parts of the world. So
So
it
then,
shouldn't come as any surprise that we find certain cultural practices that are universal all over the continent. For example, a
then
living
why do you
tradition.
wait
Why I
before you
said,
go on
which
to
is why I
another
was
point?
trying to say
Why do
that
you have
things
a
need to be interrogated from a scientific perspective. You have
Exactly.
data like Sheikh Anta Diop's data that's been out here for the last 30 years. And you have scholars who have published after him in journals like Ankh Online and Cahiers Caribbean. But I don't necessarily hear you quoting from that. And speaks even further to the point that there of this epistemological rupture that has happened in scholarship that is kind of well known. Um, there's a lot of literature on it, and frankly, from where I'm standing, if we have trade routes, if we have some trade items, if we have pack animals that could have made the trip, and we have accounts of people saying that they made the trip, and we have things like common kinship terms, common terms for grain, horse, and these kinds of things, then we're getting into another arena than just people throwing everything with the kitchen stove at things.
And
And
I
that's
want
the
to know why
problem is
you
that
simping for the Egyptians, modern day Egyptians, because they have vitriol for African Americans, Afrocentrism, because it challenges them. They're who they really are. And if we that were taken from West and Central Africa could have been those descendants that migrated, 700 years ago, whatever those migrations, there were several. We could be the descendants of those people. Why is it that we can go to Egypt and they hating on us and doing death threats and stopping our, going there to study, which we've been doing for 40, 50 years now?
I don't think we
let
are
me
their
ask you something.
descendants.
If you come into
Can I just add something? I don't think we are their descendants for this reason. Even if they migrated from Egypt, there are several cases where invasions from non-African countries, nations, often led to the Egyptian rulers escaping south. Often they escape south. They never go the other way around, apart from the Europeans and the foreigners that invaded them. That said, the reason why I say that they are not is that even if you had thousands of people come from Egypt and they ended up, who was that noise? Hold on. Even if you had thousands of people come from, can you mute your mic, please?
Somebody got a hot
Even if
mic.
you had, I think he's done it now. Even if you had thousands of people come from the Middle East and come into West Africa, where you have a larger population of natives, you might have some kind of cultural exchange, but in time, your genetic lineage is going to blend into that of the native population. So you don't, you cannot say they necessarily exist as they were before anymore. They are they are now West Africans.
Wait, I
Yeah,
thought you said,
think
wait a
that's
minute. Wait, he was
exaggerating the
responding
argument
to
too far. When people start saying all these people in Africa are the true inheritors of Egypt, and these people out in Egypt are just invaders. Because even if some migrations happen, like Tunaja just said, those people that developed on the west coast of Africa, that developed in Central Africa or East Africa, they're still West Africans. That's
right.
still
I'm
an
not
independent
denying that, but we do.
development that occurred there. I'm not even saying that to you, brother, but that's something that gets lost a lot of times. And when people try to
But
come
I
at
think
arguments, they
Well,
spread.
but
no, I think we're
to be fair,
exactly
the
debating the
Egyptian
point.
one is a
We're
big.
doing too much with it, and that
So
really, in actuality, when you talk to people from northern Ghana, Bolgatanga, At least there was one person I talked to, but there's other groups. Away people say the same thing. This brother talks about they got pyramids in the community where he lives. There's some stone, little small pyramids. They got all these other things that he mentioned about that comes from when they migrated from the Nile Valley, from Kush.
In
Yeah,
Niger
So
too. In
that
Niger,
doesn't
you
mean
can
that
I
have
just
they're
real
add this
100%
small
quickly? Can I just add
pyramids.
this
it
quickly?
doesn't mean that they're
I will be leaving
100%
soon. I will be
from
leaving soon.
there.
Can I just add this quickly? I think the movement that's the migration that happened in North Africa is different from what we are talking about in West Africa. The migration from in North Africa, we're talking about in the millions. And then there's a level of discrimination that follows that too. The fact that you have people in Nigeria that claim to be Arab tells you how strong the migration was. And the wave is still going on as we speak. So
But
you
that's
can't
Arabic.
you
Tunaja,
can't
people
You're
claim
talking
discount that.
about Arab. I'm
claim to
talking
be
about
Arab. That's because
indigenous
of Islam.
African.
No, some of
I'm
them
talking about
actually look Arab.
African. I'm
Look,
not
look at the
talking about
former
Arab
look at
migration.
this a Bazoum of Niger.
Yeah,
He's a minority in Niger, but he's Arabic. You can look at his features.
Hey,
He look
Tunaja,
we're
it's
Arabic.
not
because
talking
they
about
bleach their
Arab.
skin. They bleach their skin,
Oh, come
Tunaja.
on,
You
man.
gotta be
We're not
No,
talking
it's
careful
about
though.
true.
Arab.
It's
Although
true. They
that's
bleach their
true,
skin.
We're not talking about
got
Arab. We're
some
Well,
talking
people
about
that
not for
already
Africans
got
that
Bazoum
are
studies
though.
on some of these
leaving because of
families.
the Arab
No,
types coming
they
in and
move
invading.
in. They move in from this thing. They have been migrating south, and they've been because
And
what they
west.
do is that they because the men they follow the patrilineal lineage. That said, I agree that many of them have mixed. They are mostly mixed, maybe even 60-70% African. But that 30% that remains Arab, they subscribe to it and they are spreading south. If they can make it all the way to Nigeria, that
That's
should tell you
different
what's
though,
happened
bro.
in North Africa
That's
already.
different than what the Garoons are saying and what the Away and other people are saying. They're not saying that they're mixed with Arab. They're saying that they left because the Arab cultures came into that area, and they left because
No,
it was anti-black. It was an attack on them. They
there's always
left
some that
and went to
leave. Now,
West
all of them
Africa.
cannot leave. Most of them will stay, but there's
Well, I'm
always the
saying
elite
some
class
of
that will
them
leave.
leave. Some of them,
Yes.
enough of them left for me to hear somebody from Volta region in the United States talk about their ancestors
Yeah.
came from
But
They
just to
migrated
give
from Kemet.
context, just to give context to that and to add on what you're saying, you got to think of it this way. During that time, say around 1500 BC, there might have only been 15 million people on the planet. Those people that left from that initial wave through the Sahara, it was probably in waves. It probably wasn't just like a biblical type of thing. You know what I mean?
Boubacar Lamb writes about it. Sheikh Anta Diop's student Boubacar Lamb writes about the six
But then
paths from Kemet.
that center also has a diaspora. That center of the Ghana, Tekrur, Mali also has a diaspora that goes into modern day Ghana, that goes into other parts of West Africa. So a lot of these stories are compounded, and that just shows how much these people and cultures and states really are related.
Yeah, nobody should convince us that the founders of Egypt are Middle Eastern looking people. That is false. You can look at the Nama tablet that goes back thousands of years, almost as old as Egypt, as we know it, and look at the features of Nama and the people that he came with and the northern Egyptians. And you see clearly that they look different.
You see afros. They have afros.
Not that. What they're saying is that the modern day Egyptians, what they're saying is that the modern day Egyptians are the ones who are from the culture of what you just finished talking about. And I'm saying that to some degree that's true, but the majority of the people that are in Egypt today are of Arabic descent.
Well, that's not true. That's not true.
The majority
they have a lot of Turks there, They are Turks, Greeks, so many. Jesus, you can't even count.
Leftover Romans too.
Yeah,
so many Romans,
the Syrians,
Hyksos, yeah.
Hey, listen, they can't even live there, right? I once knew this one Egyptian guy, right? I was cool with him. He used to live in Egypt, and he would tell me that it used to get so hot over there that he would literally shake, right? And if you look at their culture over there, they're all wearing hijabs. They're covered from head to toe. turbans. Meanwhile, in sub-Saharan Africa, all we need is a loincloth, right? We don't need all that covering up, and meanwhile
Yeah,
they're wearing
but
hijabs and stuff.
one of them dismissed it, that he said the Greeks they walk. If you look at Leonidas and all the other group, they do operate. The Greeks are a little bit more used to this kind of weather, so it's not necessarily an evidence against their presence there. I think you have to look at life as it is. To be fair.
But
I
here's
know a hot desert is a lot hotter than the forest. That's
Hey,
for
hold
sure.
on. Let me pass it to Max P. Max P, go ahead.
Dynasty, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right, cool. I just want to say hello to everyone in the room.
Peace.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic that you guys are talking about, and everyone that's spoken has had something interesting to say. I just find it kind of interesting because one of the brothers I heard about 10 minutes ago, he was talking about. I think he was speaking about someone that he spoke to from northern Ghana, and they were explaining like their origin story. Being from Ghana myself, what I know is like every year in August, yeah, there's a ceremony. It's like a carnival kind of thing, where it takes place every August. It's called Omawa, yeah. Now, what happened in this ceremony is that like people dress up in red, and you just see them like marching through the streets. Yeah, it looks kind of like a carnival. Now, like I've always been curious about it, growing up and whatever, but I didn't even bother to like look into it until like say recently, and that talking like say the last 10 years and that. So I spoke to like some of the elders and like the people that hold certain information, yeah. And basically, how it works is, what it comes from is that there was a migration, yeah, into West Africa, into what you now know as Ghana. However, the people didn't necessarily start there, nor did they originate there. They say themselves, yeah, this is in the actual ceremonies, that they migrated from Egypt. Now, these people don't have an obsession with Egypt. They're not concerned with the pyramids. They're not concerned with none of that. So it's not like they're saying it like they're trying to claim some kind of like greatness or whatever. What they say is that they migrated out of Egypt through Ethiopia, then across Central Africa as a larger tribe. The majority of them migrated and stopped off in what you now know as, I think it's Ife in Nigeria. Some of them kept moving and ended up in Ghana. That's what they say, and that's only one tribe. That's not speaking about other tribes. So what you're finding is that as Africans, there's always been migrations. That's just what we do. We just move around. Do you get what I'm saying? And certain parts of cultures get left in different regions. So when you're dealing with certain people, you'll find that they might be from a tribe, but that's not the original like location. Like with even that, like my tribe, the God tribe, they're part of they time with like say the Yoruba of Nigeria, and you can hear it in the language. You know how you know how like you kind of get a lot of answers. You get a lot of answers when you're able to speak more than one language. When you're able to speak more than one language, you start seeing things that tie into certain things. So you can have like two people from two different countries, and the countries aren't even next to each other, yet they speak portions of the same language. I used to listen to Yoruba, for instance, all the time, and I'll be like, how come Yoruba sounds so much like my language, but the other languages in Ghana, the Yoruba sounds more like the language that I speak than other languages in Ghana. So I used to like try and find out, and it turns out that like there's certain words and certain phrases that we have to say that have the same meaning. So if you've got a language and you've got certain phrases that mean one thing in one part of Africa, and certain people are saying the same thing in another part of Africa, there's obviously going to be a connection there. Do you get what I'm saying? Now, me personally, yeah, as I got older, I've just like stopped caring about the whole Egypt thing, because the thing is with that thing is like there's just going to be constant like back and forth over who the Egyptians were, where they came from, blah, blah, blah. The other situation is if you type in Egyptian today, they're not gonna modern day Egyptian, you're not gonna see a black face. When you turn on the TV and they're talking about Egypt, they're not showing you black faces. Yeah, there are black people there, like for instance, Nubia. Nubia is a part of Egypt, but the way that they talk in the media, you'd think that it's some region that's not connected. Do you see what I'm saying? And the people that are there in Egypt now, modern day Egyptians, are happy to let it be like that. You don't hear them saying, oh yeah, but by the way, Nubia is actually part of Egypt, where the majority of the black people in Egypt are today. You don't hear them saying, you know what, they're actually a part of the same country. They're happy for people to think that they've got nothing to do with Egypt. Now, like, in tying in with like the guy that at the start, that was doing the interview, saying that he's tired of like his culture being said, blah blah blah. The only advice I can give to black people is like, just let them have it, because the reality situation is they're not doing anything like relevant anyway. If they think that's them, then cool. What is the point in like really going back and forth about that? Because the reality situation is we ain't getting that land back now anyway. It's gone. Do you get what I mean? So I feel the focus should be more on in terms of like what we do have. Let's build what we have now, because when you go out into the world, it's clear as day that nobody really wants to acknowledge us for doing anything. Do you know what I mean? Which is unfortunate, but I feel that it's more important that we expend our energy on things that we can change and control today. Do you know what I mean? Regardless of what's happened in the past, because the past ultimately is the past. Yes, it's important, but it's only important if you use it for your future. Outside of that, the arguments are never going to stop. Now, if you ask me, whether people want to admit or not, they know for a fact. They've already done the research. Scientists have actually already confirmed that, you know what, the first people in that land were of black descent. That's the reality of the situation. Whether they admit it openly is up to them. We know that they're going into like temples, whitening up the pictures. We know that they're doing that. We know that they flooded the Aswan Dam so that the depiction of those invaders that came in, showing you where they actually originated from. They flooded that dam so that no one knows, thinking that, yeah, if we can hide it, then we can make everyone think that black people had nothing to do. Really, the information's already out there. It's like when you take
a lot of what we're seeing is like paranoia, man.
Yeah, literally. It's like when you take the Rosetta Stone, yeah, and you hear Europeans gassing over that like it's something important. They don't realize that the Rosetta Stone was created to confuse them. Literally. You see what I'm saying? So it's like,
I don't know about that one.
For me personally, I'm like, who cares, innit? If I was want to say that it's there, it's cool, have it. They're not doing anything with it anyway. You see, like the brother said earlier, in terms of the dress, yeah. It's funny how when you have a culture, you generally find that people to this day will still have aspects of that style of dress and how they dress. You never see any Egyptians walking around dressed as like the ancient Egyptians that they're talking about. But then again, it even comes down to what you classify as an ancient Egyptian, because the reality situation is 10,000 years for black people is not that long a time. That's recent history. We didn't really call it Egypt in the first place. We called it Kemet, which was what it was known as prior to it being known as Egypt, which is what the Greeks called it. So when we start using the words like Egypt, we're already speaking in someone else's story, because we didn't. That's got nothing to do with us. The word Egypt doesn't even come from us. It's like when you take Africa, we have a continent which was not named by us. It was named by somebody else, and that's where the problem comes from. When you start using other people's names and language, it now means that you have to refer back to them.
But let me ask this though. Let me ask this. So if it is true that the modern day Egyptians are mostly descendants of the indigenous peoples that's created that culture, look at what has happened over time. And this is a political point I'm making, because if Africans mix with other people and they did that, they defiled their culture, they spit on their ancestors and did all of this. What does that say about Africans that are taking Christianity today and Islam today?
Absolutely.
100%
right. Because it's showing you that it's more than just than personal belief. It's about culture. It's about what you want for your whole society. You alone.
Yeah, but you know what the thing is? Do you want to know? You want to know where the cause of the problem is, but people don't want to admit it, and they want to pretend as if it's not, because of how society says it is. It's the mixing, isn't it? What happens is when you mix in with another group of people, yeah, over a certain amount of time, which kind of ties in what Nigel was saying, yeah, is you start adopting their ways. Now,
well, no, because you can't not mix, right? You can't not
no,
mix.
I hear you. I hear what you're saying, but I'm not saying you can't mix. Well, regardless of if I say you can
Can I add a distinction
what I'm
from what I
saying
can I just
is
add
the
a
fact that
distinction
when
from
you
what I
mix,
found? Hold on,
yeah,
please. Sorry. Can I add a
yeah, go ahead.
distinction from what I found in this? Mixing is not necessarily the problem,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to mix in strength. And what I noticed, because if you look at what the Europeans did, they took on Christianity. It's not theirs, but they owned it. They took the headquarters, they put it in Rome and in the UK,
and
and they
changed
owned
it.
it. They whenever you have to own whatever you want to participate in. But when Africans do stuff, they concede everything to others.
That's
Like
not
Mecca, Islam is in Mecca, Christianity is in Rome and other places. No, never in Africa. We don't mix. At least recently, anyway. We didn't mix with these things in power.
Yeah, do you know?
That's the
Do you know
problem.
We also understood what
Hey,
power
let,
was.
let me pass it to the truth teacher. Then we're gonna close out. Truth teacher, go ahead.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. We got to keep in mind that you can't look at Egypt today and say, well, how come they don't dress like they did 3,000 years ago? Culture
But they
changed.
do in South Africa.
Nobody in Rome, can I finish?
That's
Nobody
true.
in Rome, nobody in
I didn't
Rome
even catch
today is wearing togas. Nobody
you
here
see-
in the United States is wearing powdered wigs.
Yeah, but
Okay?
the thing is this. Okay, just to add to
But
that.
let him finish. I want to hear the guy. Let him finish.
Okay, go on.
Cultures change over time, but if you are immersed in a certain culture, in a certain people, there are things there. This is what I'm saying. Well, I was asking the gentleman before, have you been to Egypt? And he says, no.
Me?
If you are there and you spend time in the culture and you learn the culture, you will recognize that there are still aspects of the culture
not
that
what
still survives.
I'm not arguing.
The language still survives. The late stage of the language still survives in the Coptic Church, and that was very key in helping to decipher the hieroglyphics.
Okay,
so there
but
are
that's not.
things that do
I thought that was
exist.
Rosetta's song.
Looking.
That's not what. Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that they're not preserving their language. I'm talking about who was there originally.
They were Africans.
Yeah, I'm saying
Like,
the fact that you've been
I think what you're really trying to talk about is hegemony.
Yeah, the fact
Cultural
that
hegemony.
you've been somewhere 10,000 years doesn't mean that the original culture that was there was yours.
And why
It
do they
doesn't
have
mean that.
vitriol
And
for us?
The thing is, yeah, as I
Anti-blackness
even
is
said,
global.
for me, modern day Egyptians are Egyptian. I don't really personally care. All I'm saying is that the reality situation is because you've said you've been there. So if you've been there, then you would know. If you actually study, go back into Egypt far enough, you'll know that what you'll notice is that even the drawings of the deities and that, they were all in green. A lot of them, they were either green or black. The word itself, when you take a name like, say, Tar, that means black. Do you get what I'm saying? And those are the oldest depictions of Egyptians. So when you have people that say Egyptian comes from black, you can't blame them for that. Now, I'm not saying that modern day Egyptians haven't been there for a long time. Fine. All I'm saying is that the originators of that society were not the modern day Egyptians that you're seeing. That can't be debated. You take people like, say, Menes, you take people like Kamos, you take people like Amos. When you
But
go
do
to
you
the
see
Egyptian
how
museum,
that can be inaccurate though?
You can still go to.
I think he's correct. He said a lot of correct things actually. Cultures can't. Even Iran that dressing with the way they dress today, they didn't used to dress like that in the 50s or 60s when they had the Shah in office. So cultures can change. And what he said about the Nama, the founding groups that founded Egypt,
No, bro.
they are
Anytime you
definitely
get
not the
away
ones
from
you have
ancestral
today.
worship, there's no African culture, not one on the continent of Africa that is
Oh, come
from
on.
Africa.
Stop trolling,
Listen,
man.
wait,
Stop gaslighting
listen,
nonsense.
listen,
Come on.
listen.
You're
That
just
doesn't
trolling
believe,
now, talking
wait,
nonsense.
listen. That doesn't believe in ancestral veneration. There's not one. Name one.
Benin,
Indigenous.
Dahomey. Benin,
Name one
they still practice.
indigenous.
They still practice traditional African religion in Benin, which is Dahomey.
No, you missed my
What is
point.
a traditional African religion? What is
There's
that?
no. So if you got a culture in Africa that does not venerate their ancestor, it is foreign.
Exactly.
All right,
What are you talking
but
about?
what's the
I'm
value?
talking
What's
about
the
there's no
value of
cultures
that
in
though? What's
Africa
the
that
value of
do
that?
not venerate their ancestors.
Because we
Not
just
all
we
of
just
them
we
do
just spent 30
actually.
minutes.
Right?
We
And
just
Yes, they
spent 30
do.
minutes. We just spent 30 minutes
are you
talking
trying to
about
say
how
that
people
Egyptians
got
don't?
invaded
I'm
in
saying
the
that the
last
Egyptians
1,500
don't today
years.
because
They
those are not the
actually do.
people.
No, okay. You are talking
Yeah,
about current Egyptians, but the
right,
No,
ancient ones did.
right. So
they
we need to
do. In
distinguish that.
Egypt today, they still do venerate their
The
ancestors.
ones that are of African descent do. The ones that are
No,
not
I'm
don't.
No,
telling
man.
you.
Yeah, these are all
Listen,
assumptions.
listen.
I think that's a global
If you
thing. Most
go,
people,
if you
most
go to
cultures
I'm
have a.
saying
I
Yeah,
mean,
every
most
Egyptian,
cultures
modern
have,
day
have
Egyptian
ancestor
venerate their
veneration,
In the
bro.
ancestors.
early 1900s,
listen,
I'm
Even
copper
in
saying
Europe,
cited
they do that.
people
all
still
modern
buried
day
their poets
Egyptians
like
venerate their
dude,
trees.
ancestors. Is that what you're
I'm
saying?
trying to tell you something.
Hold on, am I muted or
If you
something?
go to Egypt
no,
today,
you're not.
to the
We can hear
cemetery,
you.
Like,
if you go to Egypt today and you go to the cemeteries, if you go to the people, the local people, what they call the Beledi people, right?
Those are
Not
the
talking
Africans.
upper class people. I'm talking the local people. You go to the cemeteries. They still go to the tombs of their parents and they leave offerings and libation. That practice still continues to this day.
Yeah.
Amongst
Okay.
all
A lot
Egyptians.
of people do that though.
bro,
It's
the
What
almost
culture
I'm
universal.
argument
It's
saying,
almost
is weak,
global.
bro. I'm
I
sorry, bro. The
said
culture
the
argument
local people,
is
not the
weak, bro.
upper class people.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
but what
interesting
do you mean
because
by
I
local
talk to
people? Are
West
you talking
Yeah,
African
the
about
upper
people
people,
in
class are
Nubia?
and they
usually
don't do that.
Turks.
Are you
If you're
talking about people
Muslim,
in
if you're
Nubia?
if you're Muslim, you don't do that
Class
kind of
is
thing. That's
westernized.
against
I'm talking about
Islam.
the local people.
That's
And
against
they're Muslims
Islam.
and Christians.
It's
Yeah,
against
that is against
okay,
Islam. It's
but
what
it's
they
against
call shirk.
Islam.
It's what they call shirk, which is associating Allah with other deities. It's one of the harshest penalties within Islam. So you're just making stuff up, man.
No,
Well,
I'm
you
not.
said
No, he's
Yes,
Christians
you
not
do
are.
it, so
making it
maybe
up,
the
bro.
Christians do it. I don't know.
The Christians do it.
The whole of if y'all think Africa is just over
Tell
there,
you.
just hamada all day, 24/7, and all that shit
No,
is gone. Y'all are
see,
out of y'all mind.
I think when people say Islam doesn't do certain things, I often it's just they do it in a different way. Don't they honor Muhammad? Don't they honor the elders of
The whole
their
thing is
religions? They,
syncretized. The
yeah,
whole system is
they will tell you that it's a totally
syncretized.
different way they are doing it. Like, okay, I don't want to go into religion because let's just leave that. I don't want to go into there.
All right, y'all. Listen, we're gonna go ahead and close out. Everyone, thank you so much for
Hey,
joining.
Dennis,
Like,
can I say
share.
one thing before you close out real quick?
All right, you got 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this, right? African Americans, right? They have every single right to look to Egypt, because the ancient Egyptians, they knew that one day, African people were gonna forget who we are, so they left things for us that would last for thousands of years for us to remember, the greatness of African people. And also, these Arabs, man, they can have Egypt. Like even though I'm a quote unquote Hotep,
Don't surrender that.
I have no desire to go visit Egypt. Egypt is such a racist country, full with Arabs. They could have it. The sun does not set in the north anymore. It's in West Africa now. That's all I gotta say.
All right, everyone, thank you so
Don't
much for
surrender your
joining.
history,
Like,
man.
share, subscribe. Until next time, family. Dynasty Mirror Search for Huru, and go by the documentary. Peace.